Ready to roll?
It is 6:30, so we'll start this meeting of the Jericho Selectboard at 6:31. And as usual, we start with public to be heard, and this is for anybody who has something to say that is not on the agenda. Do we have anyone who wishes to do so? If you come up to the table and please introduce yourself.
Moral support and
Thank you.
the child who.
My name is Lisa Ann Antonic. I live at 15 River Road in Jericho. I am a registered nurse with the UVM Health Network, PHSO, and this is my first select board, and I'm really not good at public speaking. So I am here, and please help me along with this. I'm here for a couple of reasons. One of them is the speeding in the town, which I know you guys have heard multiple times, but I want to give you, I kind of have a 3-point agenda here, talking about something that happened on June 6th. Talking about what has been done since the March meeting. And I'm a solution-oriented person, so I have a few, I have things to hand out. So on March 6th at 5 o'clock, I was coming around the corner, coming on Baribault Farm Road. Vehicle, the young gentleman was coming at me, license less than 6 months, going minimum double the speed limit. We have heard anywhere between 70 and 80 miles an hour down Baribault Farm Road. I saw wheels come off the pavement multiple times. He barely missed the person in front of them, and then I saw a car coming directly at me. I have no idea how he didn't hit me. The woman sitting behind me, she's here for moral support because her 15-year-old daughter was in the car. 16, sorry.
Oh my God.
He did not tell the past. If the
That is
license,
scary.
if he's got his license long enough, and he lied to her.
Yeah.
That seatbelt, he was not cut out of that seatbelt. That was from the crash.
Yeah.
There are no skid marks on that road. Again, I'm truly astonished that we managed to escape the situation. And I'm very grateful that there was not a biker or a runner on that road. This has been a
This
huge.
was on River Road or?
This was in
Barbara Farm?
on Baribault Farm between, and forgive me because
Right across from Anacon. Is it Anacon?
Arcana.
Still remember.
Jill, thank you for pronouncing.
Thank you.
Yes, so I
Was
was,
this on the news or?
he was a juvenile, so this has not hit the news and it has not hit anything.
Oh, because I saw pictures just like that.
No.
Facebook, most likely.
Yeah, I posted on Facebook because I asked Mike Weston to place the car. Our tenant is Anytime Towing. My husband and I own the lucky spot in Richmond.
Oh.
So I'm a Richmond resident who pays taxes in Jericho because we have 1.22 acres in our backyard. So, and I mean, before I'm on a time crunch tonight between kids and so forth, but our police department, I'm sure everybody has heard, has 7 cruisers sitting in the parking lot.
Yep.
And it is disgusting. And there are many people in town who would like to merge Heinsberg with Richmond. And me personally, because I can't speak for everybody, because there's a whole mix, it will not work. Al Buck and I were friends for many years. He and I used to do all kinds of work together as far as looking at the statistics and the numbers and so forth.
Yeah, as I understand it, they're very short of people too. And
There is nobody.
yeah,
We have nobody.
I know you don't have anybody.
We have 0 officers. Our
Right.
last officer was Allison, and she took a position in St. Albans.
Yes.
So all 7 cars now sit. The
We talked
one,
about that last night at the.
yeah, the one chief that they were going to hire, somebody in town put up such a stink because he had a domestic which had been investigated twice. And he's got an amazing portfolio, but anyway, we're not here for that.
Yeah.
If you consider what the sheriff is doing here and it's not enough, it's kind of like you guys not having a police force. I mean, once we let ours go, we're screwed, we'll never get it back again. But I know you guys are doing through sheriff and state police
Yeah.
I mean, we're all state police right now at this point. I mean, if we need any.
Do you have a contract with the state police?
We
or
do
no?
not have any
Okay.
contract.
Because we do have a specific contract with
Right.
them,
And does
Right.
for
that,
better or for worse.
does
but-
that continue to be, what
Back
I,
to you, because you're really fast.
Yes.
so since we've kind of moved here, let me kind of switch gears on that part. Because from Catherine had said, the state police were engaged by Jericho for up to 10 hours a week if they have the time and the staff to contract with the sheriff departments for 40 hours a week. Is that still correct?
That's correct.
And
Although
according,
that comes fiscal year 24, the state police, because they are even less officers there than they used to, it's now down to 8 hours for the state police.
okay,
That'll be
so,
starting in July,
8 hours a day.
so
8 hours per week.
Per week.
Wow.
As
And-
available.
And then, but the
if
sheriff,
available,
as they have, because they're short staffed, they're also having trouble getting troopers. And then the sheriff is 40 hours a week.
I mean,
But-
with 800 students in that school.
But the good news with the sheriff is that because we can tell them where we want them to be. So that we can do, switch timing and stuff like that.
okay.
That is.
Maybe you could continue,
Yes.
Okay.
please.
So, I acknowledge that you guys can't, we can't have police on every single road in the town. And as far as this is concerned, I feel as though, I was also being a nurse, I was the first responder on scene. So this has hit me pretty hard. I'm very happy my 9-year-old daughter was not in the car with me. But I have spoken to the superintendent, John, and I've talked about, with the education within the school systems and how we're working within that and what we're doing to help these teen drivers. I have talked to the state police and written a 3-page report on exactly what had happened, including vital signs from the children. So, driving around town, you do see sudden acceleration or braking marks all around. Right now, they're on Barber Farm, not from this accident, but from, they're on Brown's Trace. I've seen them on River Road. We've got them on Route 15. And we have had tragic accidents in this community that have happened. We had an unfortunate loss of a 10-year-old, where people are still kind of going, a cyclist, I know this isn't Underhill, but a cyclist was just struck in Underhill not long ago, and a lot of accidents. The town is talking about it. It's on Front Porch Forum. Bernie Paquette actually recently shared a post that was in jest because I think that we're not getting any movement on this. And so the first, I want to talk about some statistics that I found, and I'm wondering what you guys have. And then again, I'm solution oriented. So Catherine, you had said at the regional planning meeting to do a speed study was appropriate to do another study. Has that been initiated?
That hasn't been initiated because we need to get the data, to help the data, but we have ordered 4 radar signs that move around so we can try different roads, see what the speed are, and actually we'll record all the data involved in that. And we're going to have more permanent signs back in Jericho Center.
So have we received any data from the state police since the March meeting?
We received, I don't know if it was from the state police or the sheriff, we received a 1-month
Yeah, we get
report.
monthly reports.
Okay, so I'm gonna,
On their patrol time.
The,
Yeah.
the result of that
The
data
being
was-
invoiced.
was pretty mild.
Yeah, it was.
that's 2023 for traffic stops within the town of Jericho, including the amount of revenue that's been made to the town from those. At the time I looked, that goes from January until May. $381 and $354 are the highest. Some of those are lower, so I don't know if they're all traffic, but as a citizen, a community member, I was able to pull that off. You've had 324 traffic stops from January
We
to
have had
today.
300.
We have had, not because the town. And the income that was sourced is 27,053 and 50 cents from those traffic stops. In 2022, there were 22 accidents and only 2 of them involved alcohol. This is from VTrans. I know that this data is not correct because there are 3 accidents I will talk about that are not on these forms. The first one, this is 2023, and the map behind it will show you where these accidents had happened to give you an idea of possibly where there are concentration areas. And again, all of this can be found on, and I will hand that one to you.
Kudos to your research.
Yes, ma'am. So we have this, as of you had said that we had around 50 hours, which would leave about 29.75% of a day covered by police, right? So this is the data that I have found. The Vermont Business Journal reported on 3/15 that fatalities are up by 90%, 34% are alcohol related, 21% are impaired. 18% is the national average. Vermont is at 90. When I was pulling these reports and I was going through, especially that one, Jericho is one of the highest towns I mean, you're looking at Burlington, you understand per capita, but when I'm looking at other towns that are comparative in size, like Heinsberg and Huntington, they were less than a page. On that, 69, 65, 82. So these numbers are huge in this. So I wanted to bring that to you guys to say, we have a bigger problem than I think we know. And again, I feel like I walked away from this accident for a reason. I'm hoping that I was able to get the juvenile that was driving the vehicle some help by talking to the school to say mental health is very important, especially in our children. But I kind of want to go back to, we had a regional planning commission that we were talking about in March, the data, and then real-time speed monitoring units, that aggregated data could tell police where to sit. I believe Catherine had said that at the last meeting. So I'm wondering about that. But I'm going to bring this into another one. I live on River Road. I have a middle school, a library, a dance studio, a preschool, a park, all in front of my house. Since I have lived there in 10 years, since this last year, I have seen a car go through a building at the corner of that intersection. I left my house to go pick up my daughter, forgot my keys in the house, had to get back in, got in my car. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I saw the undercarriage of what had to be an SUV Explorer style. And I saw that there were power lines draped over this car. I have no idea how you take the corner from 15 into River Road and hit that first telephone pole, knocking out the power for multiple hours and having power lines. I do not know if that person survived or not. That is not on these reports. Neither of those are on there. I live directly across from the middle school. I can look out my window at the crosswalk. I have seen children almost be hit. I've seen a mother with a stroller almost be hit. People fly down my road. Cops used to sit there and they don't. But when they do, they sit in plain sight. At the end of that road, there is a speed sign. And in the years that I've lived there, it's never worked. It's solar powered. I don't know if that's our issue, but there are no signs that say this is a school zone. We have children here, right? So this is one of the largest concentrations where you have so many children. And there's no speed bumps, there's no signage, cars come down this road, including military vehicles, at much faster than 25 miles an hour. If you would like to put a speed bump directly in front of my driveway, if you would like to put a sign on my property, tell me how I can help make this not happen. The end of the road going out into Route 15, and the superintendent has also supported this, that the buses feel uncomfortable getting out of there. I don't even go that way anymore. I go around. My daughter and I were crossing over to the Jolly one day, and we were not almost hit by the car that did stop. We were hit by the car that the next car coming down didn't see the car that has stopped at the crosswalk. So I don't know
Not to take away from what you've said, but in fact, that intersection has been formalized over the last 10 years. Prior to all that curbing,
Right.
it was a complete
right.
free for all. And in fact,
Yes.
that building that was hit, if I recall, has been hit at least in the 35 years I've lived here, at least twice before what you're just talking about.
You are supporting me 100%,
So
and I
I
completely
hear what you're
appreciate
saying.
that. I do.
That intersection has been formalized. It's been very problematic when we've talked about the crossing. I never come out that way. I go down Park Street.
Right. I'm
Get
the
into
same
that
way.
intersection. It's
Exactly.
just too dangerous to pop out there.
Thank you
Need
so
the-
much
need the
for
light.
supporting me on this. Like
That's,
that's,
actually, there's a different plan. One of the plans for Dickinson has it, even to just do 2 ways on Dickinson without doing the fancy full complete streets. And then the idea was that River Roads through between Dickinson and 15, so we're gonna be 1 way.
that was the idea when I bought my property 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean.
But I would be
That's been a
interested in,
discussion. I mean, there's been a change of ownership of the land and all kinds of different points that we've had to avoid. The key is trying to get a light. You have to work with AOT because it's that they're the ones who authorize the light. And we have talked about that, there was questions whether it meets all the warrants or not, I mean, but certainly, we could. It all depends, the idea was that as Riverside was developed, the light would be at Dickinson, and it would be a complete street, and then that River Road would not have to be as the was, because AOT does not like to have that many lights in a row, so it's likely if we do one at the River Road, we'll never be able to do one at Dickinson.
There are many options and places to start. I think fixing the speed sign that says, hey, you're going too fast. Putting up a sign that says, hey, this is a school zone, slow down, speeds are doubled.
Yeah.
Getting a study to figure out, and even just looking at the documentation I gave you, Brown's Trace, I mean, the 15 in that area, you can see from V-Trans where the concentration of these accidents are happening. I mean, I think this is a multi-level problem from teenage speeding to, you know, which, and I can't say it's all teenagers. I know that's what I was affected, but, you know, I was a teenager once and I understand that you know, it is common. But, you know,
I am a little
where can we
surprised
start?
that, I can't recall the time in the last 35 years when there's been a wreck in front of the high school, and I've worked around lots of high schools in Northwest Vermont. And I just don't understand why that would have been a perfect opportunity to haul that thing onto the property
Well,
for
I
the
will
seniors
tell
coming in and out of the
what,
parking lot to be
not
checking it out.
Not only did the mother of this young man, because I said something to her first. And I said, you know, I want his effing car in front of that school now. I asked my guy who we rent to, Matt, from Anytime Towing. I said, I want you to get that car over in front of there. He says, well, you gotta get me permission. She wrote to Weston first, and his BS was the same as what he gave me, which was the kids only have a week left of school. We have graduation
Prom.
and no, they had already had prom.
Okay.
And he says, I can't traumatize other children. He says, we plan to do it in the fall. I said, this is bullshit. I said, you put that car on the lawn. If it saved one life. I said, my daughter was lucky enough to walk away after he was asked 3 times to stop. He was also asked by me, and it was told to him, you take it easy on the road, young man, because my daughter's gonna be in the car.
All right, so that was,
So Weston
Suggested.
would not do it.
I-
2 people asked him, his own
3.
staff asked him. And said that it was a good idea, and I can give you a list of other people.
I asked the superintendent myself and said, this is, why can't we do this? So I think we are dealing with multiple issues here between this one isolated incident, which is, again, I'm so happy that they walked out of that car.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that I'm still here. And so now I think you guys are my purpose. So, you know, so I think that's one. I think 2 is how do we get the data? Because as you can see, I'm a data person. How can we get the data to figure out where we need to concentrate this and what we need to do? And how do we start small? What's the lowest hanging fruit that we can do? And in my mind, I guess I'm biased because I'm in front of the school, but that's not, I mean, my daughter is 9 and she will not walk across the street to the dance studio. I could throw a rock and hit the dance studio. And I don't want her to. People have not stopped for us when we try to. So can we start with signs, speed bumps?
Do they have crossing guards here?
No,
And
no, and
like
it's,
at school out, school
Good
in?
luck finding them,
no,
Good luck
no.
finding them?
right? He
Yeah,
wants to work now,
So-
that's
right?
right.
I mean, kids bike to school, but
That's
it's
the
it's-
biggest problem.
and with school coming out, you've got the field there, you've got the river there, you've got, you know, it's access to Mills River for families with strollers and children on bikes. So where can we start? And what can I do?
Well, we're waiting for the signs to go in, then we're gonna start putting them around, and so obviously.
which is gonna give us the better data, and maybe it's comparable to what you just gave to John.
And I think it helps slow down too, right?
Yeah.
If you see that number, maybe not if you're a teenager, but if you see that number, it takes your foot off
Yeah,
that
that-
gas pedal. And we
right.
bought 4 of them. We spent a lot of money that we just approved it in the last select board meeting. We bought 4.
Okay,
I
thank you.
don't know how long they take to get here. I don't remember that,
Yeah.
But
but
we're making movement.
Actually, we bought total of 7.
That's right, we've got 7. 4 of them are, we can move
That's for
around.
your permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Can we fix the permanent one on River Road so it works?
I think, isn't that one of
I
the,
believe
that's one of the ones we-
that's
But isn't
coming.
there
We
a
have
minute
two-
on the main drag, by the
There's one down here where the
No.
other accident was.
25 zone in the towns, the center?
those,
Or is it-
there's two
Those are
there.
being replaced in the center.
Okay, because those don't, one of them I know doesn't.
They,
work.
they were taken away because they don't work, and
Okay.
and they
couldn't
can't be
parts
replaced
for it. They couldn't, they
Um,
there's no equipment
couldn't
for
be
it.
Yeah.
repaired.
And that's the problem with the one by the middle school, is that it keeps the parts aren't that readily available anymore, so I think that that's one of the ones that was thing, because the one on Route 15 was fixed.
Right.
And then those help the adults to slow down.
Yeah.
The kids know, I mean, a lot of other states don't even allow kids until almost 17. I was just talking to a firefighter from Connecticut. And it's 17.
Well, the other thing you can do is start pushing the legislature, because other states also have, take your picture and the license plate when they see speeding and things like that. We cannot do that. It's an invasion of privacy.
We can't, okay.
We cannot. The state sees it as an invasion of privacy, because that person, the person who owns the car may not be the one driving it, but if you were a parent and that was your kid, you'd certainly want to know. I mean,
I think, to answer your question. We are looking for better data that we can then direct the sheriff. We don't have a whole lot of tricks up our sleeve. We have the time committed to the sheriff. We have the virtual nothing that we have with the state police. I mean, they're here available for
They're responding to
bigger crime
accidents.
stuff. But frankly, you look at some of these reports, we may have crimes of speeding, but in other categories, we're relatively low, so they're not heading out this way. But I think the biggest ace we have is to have more data and to be more directive. I don't know if the number of hours that the sheriff can provide can be increased. I doubt it, because everybody's wanting to do the same thing.
Right.
yeah,
And after the kind of publicity, deservedly or not, I suggest, well, I better keep my mouth closed than that, about police services, that, there's less of an incentive to be a police officer when everybody's breathing down your neck. So I think, one reaps what one sows.
As a town, can we do higher fines, or is that state set?
I don't know if we set
What was
the
that?
fine.
I
We do double fines in school
I
zones?
almost think, I'm
I think
not
it's a
sure we
fine
can do
for
that.
us Anyway,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're
is there a
set.
double fine?
What's up?
I think it's a double fine in school areas anyway.
Well, the fines at the end of the day, I mean, they write the ticket, but it's up
It doesn't
to,
do any good.
right.
So this,
What are-
It's up,
this
Okay.
young
it's
kid's
up to
going
the
to family
sheriff
court.
to
Okay, so here's
determine
my.
what
and
the fine
unfortunately, this is
is.
the problem that is, not just.
It's not just Jericho.
The state police have been on the news multiple times talking about the increase in speedings they see on the expressway.
Right.
And the issues there.
14-year-old kid got pulled over the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
Interstate, doing like 160 or something. I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I think,
didn't know
I've
if I could go
suggested
that
this
far.
before. I think it takes more of us digging in our heels and saying, damn it, I'm not going over 40 miles an hour on Skunk Hollow,
Right.
even though the thing's 35. And even though you have 3 cars behind you,
Exactly.
Right behind you.
you,
Right behind
you as a resident of Jericho say, damn it, I'm sticking with 40.
I
And
set my
I've
cruise control.
found over the years, I get a little bit of pleasure because I used to have a lead foot. But I kind of take a little satisfaction. I'm just crawling along at 40.
I don't dare go to 35 after the last time we said that.
I consider, my husband and I consider ourselves, we're their guardian angel. Because we're only going at that speed.
But then somebody passes you on a double line because you're going too fast, or too slow, sorry.
And I go,
I mean, and I think the other one is that you've got speed limits that go from 25 to 40 to 50 back to 25. Like, I don't know how any of that, I'm not an engineer, but that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Well, if it's on 15, we
It's
don't
state.
control
That's
15
state, okay.
at all. And in fact, when this little girl was killed, they parsed it out. And if you look at the map from
It's
the town line to
crazy.
here, it's like 500 feet of this, then we go to 100 feet of that. But that's the best that we could get from the state.
We had to actually go to the transportation board to actually request that. And we were the only ones that day that actually got the request. Approved.
And it's sad that a little girl has to die before,
Yeah, that,
Exactly, absolutely.
you know,
There's always those sacrificial lambs, and you know, the problem with it is that until it happens. And it's way too late. I mean, I watched this back when I had a guy living in my house and 2 kids got killed. Within a year's period of time that were young kids. But my comment would be is that the sheriffs, they're not allowed, and they don't have anything for jurisdiction. All they can do is write speeding tickets. They don't have any to enforce anything other than that. All they can do is write speeding tickets, and the theory on that is that the town gets compensation for them sitting here and writing speeding tickets.
but they sit right out in the open, so you see them as you go and you slow, right, not I'm saying be tricky, but like. Anybody wants to come have a cup of coffee in my kitchen and just watch people fly down that road, you're more than welcome.
The other thing, again, and it's odd that you said this, because I had a conversation with Alan Buck for about 20 minutes today. I mean, I've known him forever and a day, and so I ran into Alan, and we had this conversation, and he was state police force, I mean, he was governor of detail, he was all this other stuff. And so his comment is on this, is like Richmond, they cannot get anybody, and they're not going to get anybody who's gonna cover those spots. He said, with this beanbag case that's going on right now, he said that by the end of the year, that the state police and the police force, a lot of these people, if this went through, that you were gonna find a whole lot of sheriff and police officers were just gonna walk right out and quit. They were gonna be done. And he said they were gonna be at least, even regardless, they were gonna be over 100 officers short of like there's 364, that there was gonna be 100 short in the next 6 months because people were retiring out and that kind of stuff. They're gone, and there's no incentive to bring any of
We
them
had,
back.
he and I had that same conversation.
So on that one, what
And I
is the
talk about it a
appropriate,
lot. I have a son-in-law who's a Burlington police officer,
like, is
so
putting a speed bump
messy.
in front of the middle school, is that, I mean, if we're gonna be losing and reducing our force to be able to help kids, I mean, that has shown great results from the study that was done in Huntington, which I could find for you if you guys would like me to. You know, there's, I think Skunk Hollow, it helps. But, you know, is that something, we gotta start somewhere.
And it's something to consider.
I think if the speed bump could be shown to be effective, I would consider it. I don't know how fast people are.
If you go to V-Trans, there was a study done that I read today about it's the Huntington study, road study. And if you can't find it, I will email it to you. But those between V-Trans and the state site, which both of them are written on those papers. I read it this morning. And it was a well-done study and it worked. So if we're
What
losing,
worked, the speed bump?
The speed bump, then when you enter right into Huntington, it works. I know, I drive through there.
Yep.
And I'm.
So it's a real speed bump, speed rather than a speed tape.
It is a speed bump.
I mean, it slows you down.
It's big.
It's been, yeah, it is.
But there are portable ones. And when they put that one up in Jericho Center, it kind of amazed me, they put all that damn money into putting that one up there. There are actual portable speed bumps.
Yes, we have.
That you can get,
Yeah.
and you can pick those up, you can put them in one place for a certain amount of time. When you get done, you can pick that darn thing up and you can.
I think they had one of those in North Williston a couple of years ago
Yeah.
when people were screaming about it, but I mean, you really had to slow down.
We do have, so I have those, I have one in front of my house, believe this or not, in Costa Rica.
Oh.
And it is a portable one, and it has been moved through our neighborhood of 4 avenues.
Yeah,
Because they had an issue in there,
there
and
used-
it has done amazing, but a lot of people complained about it,
there used to be,
so.
I remember when Bob Penniman was, before I got on the board, that they had one, I think at the end of Stone Hollow that just got destroyed.
Yeah, they're bright yellow.
Yeah.
They're like a plastic, and then they have, a-
Disintegrated.
yeah, they're just
Yeah,
a
it sounds like
triangle
they're better.
minus the point.
But you can move them from one street to another.
Mhm.
one
Yeah.
to find
Sounds like
whatever.
they're better
So where
quality.
shall we leave this for today.
Well, we're
I
waiting
think
on
we should just
the.
have some feedbacks and just shoot Peter. Bye.
I don't know what you're
Well,
talking about with
I think you wanna-
feedbacks. I'm not sure I want to know.
I think.
Everybody else gets a
I think
slap in the hand.
What we can do is we'll wait for things to come in. I mean, they're out- the four are out there.
Deploy those.
Do we know, do we have an ETA on those?
Sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
My property is open to you.
And then
Whatever
so
you
we can move them around and then.
And then we'll take a look at this data too,
Exactly.
because we are, not that we've actually said this, but we're gearing up for a meeting. Either us or John, our rep, with the sheriff's department that says, look, here's all the data we pulled together.
Right.
Here's a couple spots, and we want you to start paying attention to Brown's Trace and Nashville Road, or whatever the thing is. So we are doing those
Nashville's
things, but
another
I hear
one.
the speed bump. I'm really disappointed and I don't want to get involved in the politics of school and town, but I'm really disappointed that they didn't haul that wreck to the front of the high school.
I wish somebody would voice that to him besides me, because he doesn't like me because I'm quite opinionated. But, and you know what, he and I have knocked heads, and I'm sorry if this is off topic, because my daughter would go to school at the beginning of the school year before I said, oh, your phone is an issue, so it stays home. And that kid videotaped a few things that were extremely inappropriate at that school. I learned what greened out means, which is where you're so high, you can literally can't even get off the floor. He videotaped it. And Weston, I said to him after twice, and one teacher's the one who told me that they closed down the 400 hall because of a drug overdose. He requests the ambulance come to the back of the school, sirens off when you leave. And he doesn't want anybody to know about that because he thinks that it's his pride and joy and that there's no issues at MMU. Well, there is. And when I brought it up to his attention, how he had to pick up a kid off the floor from in a wheelchair to bring him, and I had it on video, he changed his tune a little.
Okay, well, thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that to our attention.
Yes.
It's scary.
Yes.
I would like you guys to keep
Yeah,
all of
I was
that. You
gonna
may
say,
keep all of
can you-
this.
Your name and email
Yes, sir.
address in that folder,
But, I
please.
mean,
Thank
this
you. That way we won't have
important
to
stuff,
go through video to. remind
Job
ourselves.
on putting that together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope it helps.
you.
Thank you.
I'm grateful that we're still here and I'm grateful that everyone's okay.
So I live you started on Barber Farm Road, so I live at the bottom of Barber Farm Road, very close to the end of Barber Farm Road. And people turn coming from 117. And by the time they get to my house, which is closer than from here to the parking lot, I would love to know how fast they're going sometimes. They're
So
like,
that
they're
young
like
man-
at 40 miles an hour and I'm like, you were just stopped. You're 40 already.
So
Well,
some of
they
those
was
black
really
marks around that corner recently are from that young man. I found.
Oh, I
out
heard a couple of
after.
those. Yeah, I hear a lot of, I hear a lot of long screeches and then I just kind of brace myself and sometimes there's a crash and sometimes there's not.
There's been
This
three
is
accidents
after-
of that in here.
After I found this out. And he also took a corner so fast. Going, I mean, a 90-degree corner. This is after the fact I find out. That my daughter rode home or was trying to get a ride home from him.
Oh, geez.
And his tire came off the rim. He proceeded to drive 7 miles back to your road. Because what is Tarbuck? Because there's some friends up there where he went to get it fixed. 7 miles he drove with a tire off the rim. But those black marks on 117, those are him.
But I know.
And he admittedly said so.
Thank you,
It
guys.
can't be just him because they're pretty frequent.
Oh, well, I meant the most
But-
common
Yeah.
ones that are
Yeah, there's
there
been some
from.
significant accidents at that point.
Yeah,
I mean,
Oh,
that's.
yeah.
Pretty common there,
that's-
too.
That's one of our crash sites that are intersecting.
Farm we can put him to work on.
That's right.
Thank you guys.
We're
I'll
trying to
leave
get to
for
that.
somebody else.
Thank you very much. We're trying to get to the farm.
I
Um,
have to go.
We have to, the first thing
Yes.
on our regular agenda is presentation, consider approval of auditing firm Sullivan Powers.
So you should have received in your packet the auditing prospectus, staff profile, extensive firm experience with other municipalities that Sullivan and Powers have supported over the years. And then finally, the report on quality control, which is an audit of the auditors. And
Yeah.
that's finished by a description of service scope and cost, general terms and conditions. So we did, and I think you all know this, we being Amy and Brian and Paula and I did an online interview with Fred Duplessis. So this is for our auditing firm that's been with the town for years, is no longer, they're retiring. They are no longer. So our current treasurer, Brian Stevens, has been in the process of publicizing RFPs for that work to change hands to a different firm.
I'm assuming that's why most people are here tonight.
Yeah.
For this new auditing firm that we're looking to adopt.
Brian, aside from knowing Fred and the work that his firm does through auditing and finance channels, suggested that we do an interview, and of the RFPs we received, he thought this would be the best direction and best hands to put the town in moving forward.
So Fred will be the one doing it?
So he would be, I think, he explained the process a little, and they have different levels of leadership and certification within the firm. But he would be one of the leads for our town.
Oh, good.
He wanted to do so in terms of process, he would come in, he would do sort of a general meeting with the financial team. And again, assumedly Paul and I, just to kind of get the lay of the land functionally. He has access to, he also is, I didn't know this, but apparently there's a bastion of auditing firms that are all based in the same neighborhood in Montpelier. So he's intimately familiar with Fothergill and the work they've done on our behalf over the years. So they have access to and they can share all the information that's been provided in town over the years. Yeah.
So this is the only firm that returned the bid.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
So the
Well,
goal,
and I will tell you that it's not uncommon right now because
Sure.
we talked about it's at the RPC because Sullivan Powers is no longer going to do the RPC.
is that right?
Yes, so
But
the
they
RPC
have historically, which I did not know.
for a
until
long
meeting the
time, and
other
it was
day.
Fred who was doing it. So Fred is fabulous. I mean, really, really top-notch person.
So I just happened to mention that because it's a $24,000 contract, and I just wanted the record to just reflect that there
Yeah.
weren't any other bids received.
Well, and this, I was going to that too, because the RPC, when they sent out their RFP, they had 0 come in. They had to do it again, and they now have to go, they're ending up going with a firm that Fred actually had recommended, but it's a national firm. And their cost is almost double now too. So I mean, the cost of auditing has gone up substantially.
Yeah.
Because there's so few people actually doing municipal or that kind of audits, particularly like the RPC, you have to have qualifications to be able to do a single audit for the feds.
So this passed muster with Brian.
Brian's wholeheartedly in support. Couple other points that were made during the interview is that there's some anticipated changes in the tax code upcoming that will make things more complex still.
Yes,
And to give people understanding comparatively, I think the town has been paying in the neighborhood of 17,000 over the course of the last contract with Fothergill, which again, from Fred's perspective, as the number of years of the contract bore on, it became more and more of a bargain. Well, had companies initiated, to start in year 2 or year 3 of that contract, they likely would have been closer to the neighborhood of the estimate that Sullivan and Powers provided.
Madam Chair, you ready for a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion, we accept the proposal from Sullivan Powers and Company to be the auditor for the town of Jericho.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Now, the next, on the agenda is review and consider the approval of purchase of the FY 24 truck. We've always approved the truck. We expected it, to come in, later in the year. But it's actually coming in early, which is why we're now dealing with, the bids for how to finance it. And this is one of the recent changes on, auditing is that the lease purchase ideas. That was the complex one that came through just 2 years ago. And how it changed.
Yeah.
But you consider one is, you own it and then it's a bill. So anyway, is there a recommendation from the town?
There is. So the recommendation, based on the research that Paula did, we currently have leases with the Kansas State Bank. And apparently, they do a lot of municipal financing for emergency vehicles, vehicles for road crew. Their proposal came in higher. Paula reached out to the community bank, which is our local bank and lender, and they work with the municipal leasing consultants who underwrite their loans for municipal vehicles. And their terms came in, their rate and terms came in to be less expensive. So the thought was, given the opportunity to work with a local lender that we already do business with, would be the advised way to proceed.
And that's different from the MLC that.
So, yeah, so MLC is the company that Community Bank works with to underwrite the loans they originate,
Well,
is my
they
understanding.
didn't take into account, as I was looking at that, based on, they just used the acquisition costs. They didn't consider the trade-in value on their numbers. Because they're talking about 5 annual payments of $50,000, and the first one's due at the end of this year. And that, their equipment cost is almost 223,000. And based on their chart, that's the number they're starting with. The balance is $222,976. So there's no trade-in value that Kansas State has put in there. So technically, over time, if you take away the trade-in, if you factor it in, it still might be less, but I would like to know where the trade-in value is, because although Kansas State Bank is a higher interest rate over the 5-year payment, considering the trade-in, it's $203,981 that you'd be paying. Whereas with the right now, the bank, it's $250,000 you're going to be paying because it did not factor in the trade-in.
Mhm.
but once you close the deal, you wouldn't. Right, like it wouldn't be up to them to care about the trade-in, and it's just that they
Well,
quoted us.
No, you really should get the number that you're going to finance. To
Yeah,
start with.
Right,
Not the total acquisition cost.
so is that a miss on our part? Did we?
Well,
Or
yeah,
theirs,
This
or-
part,
Yeah,
full disclosure. Paula did all the research, and I guess I just assumed that because the second had done it, that was also included in the MLC. So yeah, I really have no I really have no input to lend, other than we can go back and look more closely if you want to table the.
I think I'd like to table it because I'd like to make sure that we're not paying anything more than we have to.
Sure.
I mean, if you take away the,
can we table it for 3 weeks, because that would be the next time we meet, or is that too far?
I don't believe,
because this.
I don't think,
one,
I don't think delivery is scheduled till the end of July. I think we have time.
Yeah.
I'm wishing Paula were on, but she is not.
Yeah, because, technically, their grand total was 250,000. If you take away 50, it's down to 200, but it doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just gross.
Yeah, I think.
I
that's
honestly was
completely
looking at the
reasonable.
finance rate and assumed that the total payment amount, both of them reflected the trade-in value.
So let's. I recommend that we table that. Wait,
Okay.
we need a motion to table.
I don't think we
I
do.
don't think so.
So is this just that's just an error?
Well, see, right here, this is where you really get to know, because the first payment is due in December. And here, they're starting with a balance of 222,976. That's what the loan value is.
Right.
So. No,
But aren't they
Okay, so
all
we'll-
starting? I guess I'm missing where you're seeing one of them doesn't.
right here. See, they start out with the balance, this is what you're financing.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the time, you're gonna pay, this is your total payments, 250.
Mhm.
This is really what you're financing is the.
Oh, because I see it now, trade in here. You
Yeah.
can see it here. Okay, thank you.
So,
Great, we can definitely do the math and give a,
You catch that too, Wayne?
I didn't catch that. I caught something else.
I didn't catch it.
what did you catch, Wayne?
Well, I thought it was an error on the title page and it turns out that it's all right, but I was very confused about this rate and then these rates over here
And the discrepancy.
and then and the discrepancy, especially when we're going to explain it to people at town meeting
yeah,
that, oh, we're buying this a year earlier than we thought we were going to.
Right.
So let's have all our ducks in a row. And if it turns out it's really going to pinch to wait for 3 weeks for approval, then maybe we can call some quick
an
Sure,
emergency
we do.
emergency session or something.
daytime, daytime is quick approval, because, it's gonna come out of the FY 24 budget anyway,
Right.
it's scheduled for FY 24. But, we were gonna, finance it started, but of course, the nice thing is the bill didn't come due until the end of the year anyway, or a year after, so it's easier.
Okay, so that's
Will
postponed.
do.
That's postponed. Next on the agenda is presentation and consideration adoption of the affordable housing resolution. And that was done by SJ and Susan, and folks want to come and chat.
Esther, you able to share?
Yeah, may I?
Oh, absolutely. Just want to make sure I give permission. Yep. Should be good.
Hi, talking about speeding, though, we could definitely look at road design and the update of the public works
Oh,
specifications.
we've been desperate to get our
Right.
works done for years.
Right,
Because we have a one size fits all that does not work.
right.
We need to have a variety of sizes.
Well, we have moved a little toward
Yeah.
the 18-foot thing.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Only the problem is we're doing it by waiver.
yeah.
that's not a good way to do it.
No.
Okay, so we're here to ask you to consider adopting a resolution to set housing construction targets in Jericho. I'm from the Planning Commission and SJ is from the Affordable Housing Committee, and our groups worked together to develop the resolution, and we sent it to you in email, and we've previewed this project with you a few times before.
Right.
So first of all, why a resolution? So as you know, a resolution is different than adopting zoning regulations. It's different than adopting an ordinance. And boards and decision makers like you usually use a resolution to maybe express sentiment. So I think in the past, you adopted a resolution in support of Black Lives Matter to make the sign on the road. Or to give advice to another committee. And sometimes it's temporary, like when we were dealing with COVID, I think you adopted resolutions then. But in Jericho, my understanding is that it's not that frequent
Right.
to adopt resolutions. But we thought that it would be a great tool to establish goals. And when we talked with you in August, we all agreed that housing was getting very expensive in Jericho and that we had some obstacles to overcome. And as we've worked through the fall and developed ideas about what we could possibly do as a community and as a town, it became apparent that we really needed to know what we were shooting for. It's kind of like, if you're going to have Thanksgiving dinner, are you cooking for 12 or are you cooking for 20? Or if you're going to have a dairy farm, how many cows are you going to support? How much milk do you want to produce? Like, the idea of having a quantity was very grounding and would help make decisions and help provide rationale for upcoming investments. So it's not a commitment, it's not an ordinance, it's really just to establish a quantifiable framework. And so the resolution that we have before you is around goals. Originally, the idea came from the Planning Commission. And we asked the Affordable Housing Committee as the experts on that topic to develop very specific targets. So they did a lot of research about what was going on in the county and in other communities. We also consulted with the Regional Planning Commission to make sure that we were as up to date as possible on the legislation and on the Building Homes Together campaign, which is a countywide campaign to increase the number of housing units constructed over the next 5 years. Came back to the PC, we deliberated over the course of a few meetings. The Affordable Housing Committee deliberated over the course of a few meetings. And at our last meeting, we approved it as a recommendation to make to you. And we're hoping that you will adopt the resolution. So a resolution is in two parts. There's the whereas, and then it's the now therefore, kind of the legalese. And the whereas is, why are you doing this? What is the context? What's the rationale? What are the facts on the ground? And the therefore, what are you going to do about it? So that's how the resolution is structured. And again, it's not a law, it's not binding. And in some cases, it's not really considered a formal device.
So if it's not formal, how come you have to use the whereas language? I find that
Yeah, I mean.
like I'm reading through it, I'm like, okay, I don't generally speak that way, but
In that way, since,
yeah, I
for
know.
England,
Fine.
Tradition.
Yeah.
We modeled it. I think if we want to simplify it so that it's really accessible to the public and usable and feels comfortable and really represent how you want to communicate the goals to the community, we can totally simplify the language. You don't have the whereases.
I got used to it the second
Yeah.
time through. So
Okay.
Maybe others will too.
Well, I was thinking the same thing though, because I thought, sometimes the public would read that, and as soon as they get the first couple whereas, the high plays of ordinance,
Right.
and they move on.
Right.
And we do, if you're gonna take the effort to the work that you guys put in and the effort for us to talk about it and make and pass it, you want it to be something that people are gonna look at and read. So I don't know whether, we should make it more,
No, the formality gives it more gravitas.
Yeah.
It needs more gravitas.
I mean, this presentation in a way
Okay.
provides a simple language tool that could be posted on the website as a companion to explain to
Well, that's
anybody.
good.
Yeah,
That's good. I mean, because you guys do really good jobs with
yeah.
these presentations.
So the Building Homes Together campaign is 5 years. It started, I think, 2023. The Affordable Housing Committee decided on the time frame that we would get things in place in 2023 and carry it through to 2028 so that we are in sync, right? Or we're a year sooner, we're a year shorter.
We are actually timing it. We're a little off sync with the Building Homes Together campaign, which started in 2016. They did their first 5-year chunk and then are doing the 2.0, which started in 2021. So we're kind of a little late to the game.
So we're at the end of it.
Mhm.
Okay. But we also thought that a 4-year time frame, 5-year overall, including this year, was something that we could digest as a small kind of self-governing community. So we are establishing why we want to do this, and the resolution goes through the specific data that Vermont Housing did a needs assessment and that growth has been stagnant. Vermont's consolidated plan, which is the planning documents in the state, call for safe, decent, and affordable housing. These 3 entities, the county, Champlain Housing Trust, and Evernorth, combined forces to develop the Building Homes Together campaign. And then here locally, so generally the context goes from kind of the global to the micro. So locally, our school district enrollment is declining. And ultimately, that will raise property taxes for everyone unless we can grow our enrollment. We have data, we've studied the data that Jericho has become much less socioeconomically diverse. So for people who think, I don't want Jericho to change, I'm here to say it is already changing, and it has changed. And this is actually an effort almost to return it to its more diverse roots. The data shows that incomes in Jericho and new homes and prices for homes in Jericho are significantly higher than the median than the area median. And as a result, we're asking you to tell us as the committee people that these are the goals you want us to achieve. Because we think it's important to communicate it to the town and to set a foundation for the town plan and to set a foundation for investments and zoning changes that would come in 2024. So it's sort of part of a sequence. So what are we saying that we're going to do? And basically says that Jericho will address the needs for household and economic growth. And the reason household is underlined there is because it's really about people, and it's about welcoming people and families into the community. It's not about dwelling units, even though the language is dwelling units. It's really households, people who live together either as a family or as roommates or combinations. It doesn't really matter, but broadening the base in the town. And so the resolution sets up target rates, and it identifies desired housing types that help you achieve those rates. And the rates are organized by these different income levels or affordability levels for homes. So it's a total new dwelling units because it's basically a supply and demand problem. If we did absolutely nothing and just helped increase the overall rate of construction, that would be a really good thing. But in addition, because we know how the socioeconomic data is kind of slicing out, what's really missing in Jericho are new development of missing middle units, which is a term that you're all familiar with, where people who work here and, you know, the basic family, someone who's not living on, you know, affording to buy an $800,000 house can afford. Plus affordable units, which are actually designated for people at a slightly lower income level, but still very much on par with what has historically lived in Jericho. Perpetually affordable, which is a smaller category because it's a little more legally complicated, and age restricted, which is basically like senior housing. And the way to achieve these rates is by encouraging through policies, which is zoning, but it's not just zoning. It's a lot of other things that Jesse and I have talked to you about before, to encourage naturally occurring homes, multi-unit homes, farm worker housing, rentals, and senior housing. So that's kind of the structure of the goals.
So when Susan came to the Affordable Housing Committee and we were thinking about, wow, how do we just pick numbers out of the sky and set some targets? We really wanted this resolution to be a tool. And Susan did a great job of laying this out. It can identify goals and give us some idea about how to best direct our energy and our efforts. But it can create a rubric to measure progress against, which is really helpful, I think, in understanding, kind of looking for trends, understanding whether, okay, we did this tweak over here to zoning, are we seeing the increase that we thought we would see? And if not, why? I come back to your question about lot sizes and why aren't we seeing more dwellings as a result of that? So being able to kind of have a rubric set up so that we can assess our progress, both in terms of these goals, but also in response to some of the changes that either we in this room make or the state makes, or whatever. And in thinking about it, we really wanted, it was kind of a tall order because we wanted to balance between being aspirational, because this is a crisis, that word is being used, and I think appropriately so. But also useful and realistic, and something that we could actually achieve. And so finding that balance, and then also the balance between, as Susan alluded to, kind of, we wanted to course correct for some of the socioeconomic, specifically changes that we're seeing in the population in Jericho, but also in the specific houses that are being constructed over the last 5 years, kind of course correct for that. But we didn't want to overly correct so much that we're presenting something that doesn't really make sense for Jericho. And so kind of trying to find the balance between those things, we really put a lot of thought and had a lot of discussion about how best to do it. We also didn't want to micromanage and say like, okay, we're going to do 5 duplexes, 3 triplexes, and we're going to ask for 20 ADUs, and because that also seems unreasonable and unrealistic. And the way that we're going to address this problem is going to depend on lots of different people from lots of different areas coming together, coming up with creative solutions. And there needs to be some flexibility to account for that. And ultimately, again, this is about people. This is about bringing new households, new families, new folks into our neighborhood. And whether or not it's 3 duplexes or 10 duplexes doesn't matter. It's about bringing people here and making, setting the stage that allows for that. So one thing was setting an overall target of new units constructed, which may be rehabbing or repurposing one big old farmhouse into 2 or 3 units, or complete new construction. We wanted to set kind of an overall target, again, that looked at the Building Homes Together campaign to get an understanding of the scale of the county's goals, and then consider our role within the county in terms of like, how many households is Jericho and Chittenden County? How far are we from the urban centers? That picture, and then also looking at the growth rates in Jericho over time to try and get a feel for, well, what can Jericho actually support? What did it look like in the 70s and 80s and 90s? What does it look like in the last 5 years? To understand kind of where the numbers land us, and taking all of that into account, we landed on 30 units a year. And it's aspirational. So in, I think it was 2020, 2021, we were at about 20 units a year, which was real peak boom for us. Typically in the 2000s and the teens, we've been about 10 units a year. But it's also not, it's tenable. So in the 70s, it was 40 units a year. In the 80s and 90s, it was 30, 25 units a year. And those are decades. And we're only talking about a 5-year period here of 30 units per year. So that felt reasonable, kind of given that big picture.
You're talking 50 years ago,
I'm talking,
the 70s, whatever.
I'm talking that
50 years
in
ago?
peak 70s, yeah, when we were at peak development in Jericho, that was at 40. So then we also, again, were interested in looking at families and households and the people that we wanted to welcome. And so how can we think about setting goals to kind of shift that pendulum swing back to what has been typical for Jericho. And so that led us to looking at affordability ranges. And we looked at both the housing stock of Jericho, compared that to what's been constructed over the last 5 years. And the kind of rubric we looked at there for comparison was selling price kind of within the time frame, which is wonky and isn't worth going into detail. but also things like number of bedrooms. So what percentage of homes in Jericho have 2 or fewer bedrooms, which would be considered a small home, which would naturally be more affordable. And looking at the percentage of homes in Jericho that aren't single family detached. So how many multi-units do we have? How many whatever? And again, those are going to be more affordable. And so that led us to a figure of around 20%, a goal of new construction, 20% of which being affordable to lower income working families, and 30% being affordable to middle income families. And then the last number that we did feel like was important to kind of hone in on was the perpetually affordable housing and the senior housing. We looked at what we in Jericho currently have, what our neighbors have recently done or are planning to do, and then some planned projects and needs that we've identified in the town. So for perpetually affordable housing, we already have 5 shared equity homes in Jericho. The last one was added in 2015. We know that from 2016 to 2020, so that was the first 5 years of building homes together, Richmond has added 4 new perpetually affordable homes. Underhill plans with Harvest Crossing, somewhere between 7 to 10 new units.
Probably closer to 7.
7.
Probably closer to 7.
And we know that this is also something that the select board and the JCDC are interested in facilitating. So we settled on the number 10. And senior housing is again something that we know is a huge need and demand in Jericho. The thing about senior housing is there's lots of current residents in Jericho who would like to downsize and move into a smaller home, which would then free up the home that they're currently in, that may be larger than their needs. We have Jerry Hill, which is 24 units of perpetually affordable senior housing. Senior housing doesn't have to be perpetually affordable, but Jerry Hill is. And we know that there are, and I'm referring specifically to Wisdom House, an example of a group of folks with a clear project plan who would really like to make some senior housing available. And so again, that speaks to feasibility and the realistic or the reality, possible reality of these numbers. And so we settled on 15. So again, these are over a 5-year period. So from the beginning of 2024 to the end of 2028. This is what,
And then the rest of it would be market based. And not that the town can actually like enforce that these would occur. It's really more, if this is the goal, what do we need to do with zoning, with infrastructure, with other investments that we can make this happen. I feel really good about these numbers because some people in our meetings think they're way too low. And other people in the meetings think they're way too high. So SJ and I think like we must have gotten it
nobody's
exactly.
happy. We're
We
good.
must have gotten it exactly right.
It's supposed to be.
Yes, so we could have worked on the budget deal, but anyway, okay.
Well, and those numbers are approximate what our percentage of population is to Chittenden County as well.
Mhm.
Yes, they came at the numbers like all these different ways, like percent of population. Based on past growth,
I
but-
calculated it one time by percent of population, 2.0 came out just to see.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
so it's a little more growth than what we've recently experienced. It's not more growth than we've ever experienced before. And
That's a good
it seems
phrase.
completely,
That's a good phrase, Susan. It's not what we've had recently, but we have had it in the past.
Mhm,
That, I think that's very useful, that phrase.
mhm.
Yeah, it is. It's a good way of presenting it.
Yeah, because on the face of it, these, and especially with our anemic growth rate, people want to live in a bedroom community, and that's what we have. But I agree with Susan's, SJ's statement that these are aspirational, and I know I've, in organizations that I've been involved in, I've had to officially adopt metrics that frankly, I knew as a manager, there was no way we were gonna achieve those. But you need to push the organization towards those numbers. So to the degree that, for me personally, these are aspirational and they help inform what the work of town government is. I'm not so concerned about quibbling if that's too big or too small, because it really is just setting a tone and a direction for both the select board as well as, town administration.
Well, and it was also one of the reasons why we wanted to include percentages, because the hard numbers. I think it's helpful to have something to hang your hat on and to understand kind of where your guardrails are and what's really extreme and what's absolutely no movement whatsoever. But construction is going to happen, and whether it ramps up or slows down, it's going to happen. And if we can create an environment where builders and developers, homeowners who want to subdivide or want to add an ADU, if we can create an environment where we can shift those numbers so that instead of a majority, I won't say all because I want to be accurate, but a large majority of the new construction currently is astronomically priced and are very large homes and not accessible to people making in the middle income, people making 120% of area median income. If we can shift that so that 30% of new construction or new units coming on the market are available to middle income folks and 20% are affordable to lower income folks, that's great. But at least this way I can sit down and I can run the numbers for 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And then as we make these changes, we can measure on all of these different levels here, where we've come from and how we're doing. And we really wanted to, with the previous, we'll also be going through and looking at the types of new construction that's being built, not just whether it's affordable, because the market is a wild place right now. So who knows where that's going to land and when that's going to settle. But if we can go through and see that we've got a substantial increase in the number of multi-unit dwellings that are coming on the market, or we've got some new ADUs and some new rentals coming on the market, and we can tally some of these and see some increases in those areas, even if the market isn't behaving the way we'd like, and some of these small, naturally, what we would normally refer to as naturally occurring affordable houses, which are small and so therefore cost less, even if those are still priced really, really high, we can still see progress and change in the direction that we want. So we've got lots of flexibility to measure.
Certainly go through a lot of money that way.
Right. We also think it will put us in a stronger position for grants and for attracting employees and for attracting developers by
having these targets, Will.
But I think by having an overall comprehensive plan that includes these targets. So the targets won't stand alone, but I think they can be the spark. And in some ways, it establishes a discipline that if you read the town plan now, it's very vague. It's sort of like, we want to do this and we want to do that. And from business, like when you have vague goals, they're so easy to just sort of sweep under the rug and kind of ignore. But I think.
Could we just jump, I looked closely at the resolutions and I found the definitions really useful. By the way, this cottage court,
I love
Yeah.
that's what we need.
Yeah,
Exactly, absolutely.
Cottage court, 2-bedroom things that people can afford.
Single
They
level,
can have a kid or two, they can live in there. And it's got to be reasonable.
I
because
think
it's
cottage
a little
courts are also
bitty thing.
great for seniors, because single level, help bed-
That stuff was really great, opened my mind a little bit. But the thing that I kept coming back to, and I actually spoke with Linda about this yesterday, was how do we operationalize this idea And so I looked at the last couple carrots. Right before the select board, be it further resolved that to achieve these housing goals, the select board will, and
Right,
there's 6 or 7 carrots. Now, this is the special sauce.
Right.
This
Yes.
stuff is all nice, that's great, I'll have another drink, let's talk about this some more.
right,
This is what's actually gonna make something
Right.
happen.
And I
Right.
hope you notice that the special sauce gets spread around so that we've given not just you all, but the planning commission, the affordable housing committee, we all have responsibilities here.
There's a lot of lifting. I mean, the first carrot has to do with changing, change of language, policies and zoning regs. That's good. The next one has to do with this wastewater feasibility study, which,
We just approved.
is vitally important. And then a little bit later on, align the town's municipal budget and capital plan. I think that could have some real promise when we start actually investing in those. And I was intrigued, I saw in 7 days this week, there was an ad for Johnson for a community and economic development specialist, and people have talked informally about, we really should have somebody on the staff, and let's throw some money at that, maybe they can get things
Yeah.
going.
actually, that was a formal recommendation
Right,
from
you
the
guys-
planning commission.
I looked at Johnson's, I printed it out what they were expecting, and I was a little underwhelmed because I keep expecting somebody, oh, there's the magic bullet, we just gotta get one of those things. And of
Right.
course, those things don't exist.
Right.
So,
Well, we have identified, I mean, we did talk to the person in St. Albans who does that job and learned from him and could develop a job description. We also identified some real estate consulting firms that could advise us on projects. And basically the secret sauce that you're referring to listed here for people who don't have the same paper that you do, it's not exactly the same, but mostly, was basically to say, we will take action, and these are the likely actions, but it still gives enough flexibility. We don't know what the wastewater study will show.
Right.
We don't know what the Community Development Corporation will find. We don't know, we're not expecting the town to become the developer for all of these units. We want to catalyze the private market.
right.
To catalyze the private market, we know we need to do these things. So we hoped that it was like specific enough that you knew what you were signing up for, but broad enough that you weren't being backed into a corner, like you must, put a sewer in this corner by this time frame. Exactly. So that was the other balance that we struck. Similarly, we had some people who were like, it needs to be more, and other people like, it needs to be less. We just need to set targets. We're like, okay, we're good here. So that's what the remainder of the resolution says, is
Do
if
we
we
have-
want to achieve these targets, then this is how we're going to approach it.
The thing that came to mind, and again, I talked to Linda about this briefly, is the capacity of our existing staffing to get some of this done. And I don't have enough data to say, oh, we need more staff time.
Right.
That would be irresponsible to say, well, let's just get one of these things and they'll take care of it. But it seems like at some point down the future, we certainly in the last few years that I've been on the select board, I've heard a lot of people say this government needs to be a little bit bigger than it is. I mean,
Right.
I know that's heresy, but that's what I hear people saying. We got to get a little bit
Right.
bigger. We need to start developing an argument, and Linda starts sort of keeping track of workflow to
Right.
get a sense that if ultimately we come before the voters in a year or two and say, we want to have this halftime position and it's going
Well, you
to
already have.
$50,000 that we have
Right,
data to support
right.
that.
You
Well,
already have a half-time, a part-time donor, that could also, become a
Right.
full-time position doing X other things.
Yeah,
We're
we need
also-
to develop the argument for doing that before we.
We're
Yeah.
drafting the town plan right now, and when you see it, you will see proposals in there around capacity and resources.
Oh, great.
It's definitely on the radar.
Thank
Just the last thing to say is because we've been working on the town plan, we've had a community forum, we've had all these online surveys, we've talked to a lot of people, we were at the farmer's market. I've lived in Jericho for a while. I would say that it's definitely feels like a shift in that having goals and welcoming more families and welcoming growth of an appropriate scale is welcomed and is being asked for by the community. And I think is well supported by the majority of people that we have heard from over the course of the last, I would say, since your committee was formed. But since in earnest in August, when a lot of these conversations have been going on at our meetings, we're hearing go, 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 more, yes, 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 set goals, set targets. So that is what we would like you to do, is adopt.
Does
the
portable
resolution.
stuff still have to go through the planning and zoning? I mean, you know, planning and zoning regulations, like that, what's planning steps?
Did you say that question again?
Does anything that's done on like affordable housing, does it, any permitting and whatever, does it still have to go through?
Sure, yeah,
It's-
DRB
And you
review.
stick by those town rules?
yes.
And that's why.
It
the-
doesn't have to go by them. They're,
No, what
but
I'm
it has to
saying
go by
is-
Chris and,
Right.
and the zoning.
Whoever does it still has to comply with.
Yes,
Right.
But
But the new,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, the new town plan can then suggest zoning changes that then would make it easier or harder to push something through that's, after.
And then, you know, they gotta look at density bonuses and all kinds of, you know, carrots and sticks. That would entice the developer to throw the units in. Yes.
And the first home that I bought. Was a small 2-bedroom cottage. That was an affordable home. And that's how we got our start. That's how we started to build equity and save, was because the home was something that we could afford. The mortgage was only slightly higher than rent. We had a little thing. And but the fact that it cost a price that we could afford didn't make it go through any different kind of DRB review. It's still a 2-bedroom cottage home.
Yeah, I keep saying that. I don't know what we would do if we were starting right now.
Yeah.
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 I don't know. I mean, I know I'm not the only one thinking that, but,
Homes right now,
right.
but I mean.
Yeah, I don't think I could either.
Yes, well, the other thing is, the state is actually with S-100 implementing some
Mhm.
zoning changes
Mhm.
For the municipalities in terms of units and numbers and
Right,
things like that.
right.
And I guess the only other, did you have anything on here that we didn't?
No, I think we basically covered it.
I just put this slide in at the end, just to remind us all that there are a lot of different people at all different levels thinking about this, putting a lot of energy, a lot of resources, a lot of money towards this. And it isn't just for you three to solve. It isn't just for the town of Jericho to build homes. It isn't just for, this is a community movement, and it's being incentivized and prioritized by people at every level of government and in our community. Our local nonprofits, our local builders and contractors are looking to find ways to be able to do this in today's market. It's doable. But we all have to decide that we want to do it, because if we don't, then we continue to get $1 million homes being built on really large lots, which is great, but that shouldn't be the only thing that we're adding.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, we are.
I'm gonna do a long one so that it captures the whole thing, as I think that's appropriate.
Right.
you got a half an hour, go ahead.
I have it all written out in front of me, so. All right. So I move that the select board address the needs for household and economic growth by setting the targets for following construction in Jericho from 2024 to 2028 as follows. A target rate of new dwellings constructed to average 30 housing units per year for the resultant total of 150 new housing units by 2028. On average, about 30% of the new dwellings constructed will qualify as missing middle income housing at a target rate of development. This would represent 45 new missing middle units by the end of 2028. 20% new dwellings constructed qualify as affordable to individuals or families with low or very low income. At a target rate of development, this would represent 30 new affordable units by the end of 2028. 10 new units would qualify as perpetually affordable, and 15 new units qualify as senior housing.
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for the effort you've worked with, and of course, now means everybody has to do more work too.
Thank you.
More work now.
Thank you for
so
your
much.
presentation.
Thank you for all that
Fantastic.
work.
All right, now
Don't forget those cottage courts.
yeah, that's right.
So if we're gonna have quad plexes and whatever, why not have a cottage court on that same property?
Right.
I actually have to look up what cottage court is. We're supposed to know what that is.
Well, now, next.
Did you
is
ever
the
go by
head
TP
reading.
Village in Pittsburgh where they had these little tiny homes and
Yeah.
people lived
Yeah.
down on your Billington anyway?
It's like the little gingerbread houses, you know.
Oh, like those kind of things.
That was
Okay.
Rock Falls, it was like, yeah.
It's the, you know,
Wayne's house.
1950s, you know. When you're traveling Route 66 and you know, all the little cottages. The motel.
Chuck's not here tonight, but that cottage court,
Yeah.
tiny houses for people who can afford those tiny houses. That's what we
Or
need.
if you want to downsize to.
Well, you're right.
But anyway, we're now here for the real heavy lift, the here's the paper.
Yeah, we do have a big packet tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have, yes.
Yeah.
That would be ceremonial, wouldn't it? I do have the signature page here.
And then, this is review and consider the Conservation Reserve Fund request. Tom Baribault has sent us the information and we have representatives here of, the, Farm Upstream, LLC and,
In the Hunt family.
you know, so I mean, this is. So I guess Tom has to start to, since he, is proposing to spend, you know, out of the, you know, fund and he reviewed it.
Well, I'm spending part of the $20 that our family chips in each year to the CRF. And I'm happy to spend that, but I'm here to answer your questions about how the Conservation Commission arrived at its recommendation to recommend the expenditure of $65,000 from the CRF.
I think the easiest thing is if you just give us a brief overview, so that's in the record for everybody who, you know, might come, you know, because you know, like, okay, these folks came to
Okay,
you and they
happy.
needed this.
the Conservation Reserve Fund, the CRF.
Yeah.
Is a townwide funded reserve sum of money that the Select Board has authorized the Conservation Commission to serve as a vetting entity. We have established a set of analytical points to assess the relevance and the merit of individual applications. And to this date, the town has only received, as far as I could tell, only one application for helping to defray the cost of obtaining a conservation easement, and that was the mob's property. And for that exercise, we developed a set of criteria that we put before the board for your interpretation as to whether it was
We adopted it as policy.
represented the right way to go about analyzing applications.
Right.
So
Yeah, we adopted it because we needed to test it out.
so the Farm Upstream is LLC is our second such application. It's for a much more sizable amount of funding than the first round, but I've been assured from the staff that there is an adequate amount of money in the fund, since it's infused each 6 months from taxpayer money
$139,000.
as its current balance, right?
Yeah.
So in May, we at our monthly meeting, we analyzed all the supporting documents that were submitted to us, and we came up with a scoring system based on of the 4 different criteria that are in the analytical process. The application scored points for general criteria, natural resource protection criteria, as well as agricultural resource protection criteria. And the commission was unanimous in approving a maximum score based on our rubric. So at our May meeting, we passed a motion that select board should consider approving the entire $65,000 request. And the other participants in the process from the local land trust and the state land trust, as well as the applicants for purchasing that portion of the Hunt estate for future farming, are all here tonight, so.
Yeah, I wanted you to come and talk a little bit about this, like, because when we did the Mom's Farm, I mean, there was already a vote that the town wanted to preserve and conserve the Mom's Farm, so it's still pretty straightforward that we knew that that was, you know, something to do. This is the first, essentially, conservation ask that has come, from the community, from
Right.
somebody who's buying community land in Jericho and wishes to continue farming. So it's important that, you know, that information be out in the public so they understand why we may think it's a good idea.
Tell me a little bit more about the, I've looked at this, was fascinated by it.
Well, fascinating, amazing amount of material,
A lot of material,
a lot of work went into that.
and I'm so excited. But by selling the conservation rights, the property
Development.
and development rights, also the conservation rights.
No, the Conservation Commission, that's why they take it over, is because the development.
Oh, Okay, the way it was written, it looked like there were 2 separate things. So will the town end up having less receipts, less revenue as a result? Will this property be worth less, therefore, than if it had been commercially developed? And therefore, there's a perpetual decrease in the amount of revenue that would come from this property. Do we have any sense of that?
It's a good question, Wayne. I don't think the property goes off the tax rolls. I think
Right,
there's still taxes to be
right.
paid.
But the property is worth less because there's no development that can occur on it.
Yeah, it's.
So if you got $100,000 piece of property and you sold the development rights for $20,000, I mean, I don't know if the numbers follow exactly, then the property is really only worth $80,000 because you can't sell it for the $100,000 to put the McMansions on it.
That's my understanding.
So you would actually get slightly less, you'd preserve open space, which is,
And you also, it's taxed at the agricultural level, but remember, they're going to have 2 families in the home,
sure,
so. you
yeah,
get-
no, I'm just thinking about receipts to the town.
Oh, well.
What's the property taxes that the town is
If you
gonna
sold
get?
it for development, you know, the number of homes you could put in there, the very expensive homes, you know, there's no equation, because it would be a very big difference.
Right. That's what I thought.
I might be able to answer that a little bit better for you. Our price, these kids, my children not. They have a purchase and sales agreement, their number to the Hunt Trust stays regardless of what anybody does.
Right,
So when I went to do this after interviewing God knows how many people, I mean, to be sure that I was getting, you know, a right mix, I wanted to do what my father and mother wanted to do. Now, no way did they want Chase Farm garden or Chase Meadows, you know, whatever Chase Garden sitting there in the middle of that meadow. But what we ended up having to do was I had 2 test pits dug out there in the field to come up with what the soils were, just to confirm soils to begin with. We could not do just a normal appraisal. We had to, with the Vermont Land Trust coming in with their, after, you know, with the funding afterwards, we had to have a specialized appraisal. There are only 4 people in the state who do this specialized appraisal, and it's the one that the VLT approves of. And what they do is they come in and they take the comps from all over. And then what they would do is they would say, okay, so this property is worth X amount of dollars with no engineering and whatever on it. But also adds in what the agricultural easement portion of it was that added, you know, a few $100,000 to that property because of that specialized appraisal. So they have a built-in, it's kind of a built-in factor, you know, to gain extra value with that. Do you have any questions?
I'm a little lost on exactly what we're doing. So
We have to prove spending 65,000,
so we approved spending 65,000 out of the conservation fund
yes.
that goes to what?
Which has $140,000 in it.
Right? Yep.
And it goes to fund their gap that they need to raise to finalize the deal. The Vermont Housing Board and you know, Housing and Conservation, of which the Land Trust is, they have given, I think, $550,000 to the purchase price. Our local land trust has given money to the purchase of the property at 800 some thousand, you know, total of 807,000. And so they have to come up with their own mortgage money, the house and everything else. And what's left is 65,000, and that's what they're looking for from us.
Gotcha.
And so the money can actually go sitting in escrow and come at the final closing to the land trust or whoever, you know, actually Martha's Trust, actually.
Right. But like I said, regardless, I mean, we have our numbers. Regardless of what you do, that's the way it is. What I'm seeing on it is that I think VLT was the one that actually requested or started getting the town involved. You know, you could, you know, these kids are taking a farm that 0 nutrients in those meadows and those fields that have just been stripped and whatever for whatever. You're also
Regenerative agriculture.
uh,
I said regenerative agriculture.
Right. And so the other portion of that too is that, you know, that was my grandfather's house. I mean, and it was my father grew up in that house. I grew up in that house. And they're probably about the only people that said, okay, whatever it takes, we're gonna try to restore this house and bring it back to life. And like you were talking, affordable housing, they're gonna make 2 units. We're gonna have 2 couples that you're gonna have one downstairs unit and one upstairs units where these young couples, one of them getting married next week.
Oh, that's great.
And the other ones are getting married on September 30th.
Wow.
So we have some children that are moving in and they're gonna try to take this farmhouse and turn it into, like you said, multi-unit so that they can have those. The other thing is the barn and disrepair and doing whatever. These kids are gonna do their best to try to try to put that barn back together and make it reasonable. They have the community in mind as far as gardens and that kind of stuff and pick your owns. They will have their own vegetable stands and whatever that will be right there. But this takes time and it takes process and it takes a ton of damn dollars. When you start, there's no water source on that side of the road for the farm.
Really?
There was no water source. It's over on the other acreage on the other side. There is not a septic system that probably is compatible to put 2 couples or whatever into it. This is their expense. It's not a trust thing. It's not me that's paying for these things. When these kids get in here, they have these particular things that are right there in the front of them on that table.
Did the restrictions preclude any more housing being built? I mean, or could they,
They can't build another house. on
they
it.
can't throw up another house in 10 years kind of thing?
They can,
What did you say, Libby?
52 acres that will be permanently conserved.
right,
They can build
So.
ag buildings on it, but they can't put any residential
Right.
housing on it.
And
Okay.
can adapt the current housing to meet whatever the need is that we see, which right now it seems like a duplex is what we'll do with it, and then
Right.
there is a provision.
Well,
for-
could you speak your name for the record?
Sure, Jake Cornfeld, of the farm upstream LLC members. There is one provision in the conservation of interest thing called farm waiver housing, where we would go to the easement holder, which in this case will be Vermont Land Trust and Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, and we would have to basically prove to them that it's vital for the success of the business to have an additional farm waiver housing structure, and they would decide where within a specific parcel on the property that's already been defined that housing could go and what the square footage could be, and so there's a lot of restriction on what any potential development would be, but that's the only potential.
That would be the only avenue
And then
for that.
from-
And again, I don't want you to misconstrue that I'm opposed to it. I'm just thinking if
Yeah.
you're wildly successful and you want another dwelling
Yeah.
unit 10 years from now,
It's a huge challenge of conservation and of running a viable farm business, and the land trust is trying to figure it out, but right now this is what we have.
Right, in fact, it's reading, all the words, it, it did say that the board still has the option to say no. In spite of everything else.
but you mean your board,
No,
Yeah. well, your board can too, and you can slice it any way you wanna slice it, but these guys.
well, that's true, the development review board, yeah.
You're proving the numbers, I mean, and all I'm saying is that. It doesn't affect me, but these kids have got one hell of a.
Yeah.
A game ahead of them.
Well, the exciting thing is, based on, what happened at town meeting with the people voting to consider whether Jericho should be a food hub.
right? Yeah.
And these people are talking about bringing more agricultural lands back. and
Sure. Yeah, that was
produce-
even referenced in here, I think.
Yeah, and in fact, this, my husband, at full disclosures, goes to those meetings. And he said there was people there the last meeting and they had a lot of energy and they were talking about this. So I figured it had to be you guys when I talked.
Well, everybody's young with a lot of energy compared to us, Catherine.
But
Newsflash.
But he was talking about, farm.
Somebody was there under 50.
They didn't have gray hair. They were there.
But he did talk about them talking about farming and stuff, and the idea of, bringing, more local food. Because I think John went to it today, that I also went to, the state is now creating, this new tool that's a municipal,
Vulnerability index.
vulnerability index, and food security, and whether you can continue, say something happened and food couldn't get, like, for a while in COVID, get to the town, get to Jericho. You want to have resilience and sustainability within your own community.
Now, Libby's, not you specifically, but the local land trust has to raise a little bit of money to,
20,000. Yep. I'm assuming that the select board approves the request for 65,000, that's what's left, is 20.
well, I'm wildly excited about it. I've looked at that parcel for years and
Yep.
just. In addition to the agriculture uses, that it's iconic in that it separates the center from the corners. And, it's kind of a fiction that we have three villages, but that parcel helps delineate. You've left the suburban Jericho corner section where I live, and you're moving into the rest of town. So you could say that for the Strang property too.
Right. That's really
It
important.
really is iconic that way.
Absolutely.
So,
They connect.
I fully support this. I support you guys busting your hump over the next 10 years to be getting all this stuff done. Increasing soil fertility, it's all really good. I have a reason to stand on that bluff once in a while that overlooks the property, because my son lives right near there, where those little Christmas trees are being grown, and I'm just so excited to see this property kind of protected and loved, so I definitely support that. I make the motion that we release $65,000 from the Conservation Reserve Fund for the purchase, in part for the purchase of the Hunt property. I guess I can still call it that, or is there some other name?
It's the Marjorie.
The
Hunt Living Trust.
The Marjorie Hunt Living Trust property.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Welcome.
My kiddos.
Martha, we're so happy that you've been able to bring it to this
Yes,
point.
yes,
So lucky. Thank you so much.
thank you.
I'm your neighbor across the street. Hey, guys, welcome to the neighborhood. Nice to meet you. You got labor right across the road. I've got 2 young teenagers who will be work ready. They're already excited.
Well, thank you all for reading that material.
Thank you. I mean, there was a lot in there. Well, thank you for, taking a chance and, moving forward to create more farmland. I mean, Tucker knows what it's like.
Thanks again and best of luck for your wedding
Hey,
plans.
thank you,
Yeah, go celebrate.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Next is the select board.
You don't hear mazel tov too often around here.
No, but you can, I've been. Next is the select. board.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
And thanks, Tom, for your effort.
Your work is not overlooked.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Next is a review of the, it's actually select board updates.
Great. So SJ is still here, and so we can release her momentarily. We wanted to, and Catherine, you're probably aware of this, we wanted to let you know about this neighborhood infill grant program. I'm gonna refer to my notes here. It is a program sponsored by the state that is looking to support communities like ours to be part of this Homes for All campaign.
Right.
And they're looking for 5 municipalities that through application would like to participate to get support for their affordable housing initiatives. And the reason we wanted to let you know tonight is more informational. It's not a grant per se. There's no match, there's no money required on your part. We just wanted to let you know that we've had discussion and plan on applying.
Yeah, so we'll be applying for, to be one of the neighborhood infill design case studies. And so what that would mean is a half-day, sorry guys, I'm screaming at you, although I guess this isn't that much closer. It would be a half-day visit with their project consultants that would happen in October. And they would do a little community portion, I think, to kind of talk with stakeholders and maybe members of the community as well, to get a feeling for the kinds of infill that we might be interested in, get a sense for the word character is so loaded, but get a sense for the community, the structures that are already here, the density, the architecture that's here. And the interest of the community and the kinds of things that we may have need for. And then they would go for a walk of a tour of the area that we would be interested in them then putting together a visualization and a kind of plan for what infill in that area would look like. And the kinds
Like a maximum density thing?
well, it can be whatever you want it to be.
Just
If
had
you're
just a little
looking for
hesitation in my
maximum
voice
density.
because when we went to quarter acre zoning in the corners years ago, we showed, I think Susan was on the scene then, but we showed these pictures. Yes, there were these pictures of what that density level would look like. And it scared the bejesus out of people because they were like Lawrence, Massachusetts kind of pictures, like, you know, kind of thing. But, so I'm just,
Well,
what are you thinking of? What's the
I think
area?
that
you think-
That's why they are starting the day with a community forum, a community meeting, because they're wanting to get a sense for the kind of infill that we as a community might be interested in. The location where we think that infill might be possible, but we're not quite sure how it could happen, what it could look like, what it would take.
And what are we thinking of for the area?
Well, we haven't decided that yet.
Okay, all right. I just wondered if you,
It could,
Help, Tetro Riverside.
yeah,
it could be looking at the commercial district. It could be looking at some of these deep lots along Route 15. It could be an area like
Do we
where
have to know that
Railroad
ahead of
Circle
time?
is,
do
where,
we have to know that ahead of time?
yes, but
We
we
do.
don't have to decide that until we've been chosen to be a case study. So this is saying, yes, we would love to have some consultants come in and use us as a case study so that we can then get information direction that is specific to Jericho and to what we're actually interested
Sure.
in doing. And get this information for free and get this
It goes back to the resolution. I mean, it's just one more thing we can.
exactly. And so we're applying to be considered as a case study. So then they would come in, they would do the community outreach portion in the morning to get a sense for what's going on. They take a walk of the area that we identify that we want infill. Then they leave and they provide us with a visualization, like you were saying, and it can be what we want it to be, not the capacity that it's capable of, but
Okay,
how do
right.
we realize an infill that we want in Jericho, that we want to facilitate, and then what are the tools available for that? And then that case study, we get some of those materials, but then we become an example for other towns like Jericho of ways that they can implement these changes, or they can provide visualization for their community of what gentle infill looks like in a town like Jericho. So they're looking for 5 different case studies. And we will, and I suppose you could nix it tonight, but we were planning to apply to be one of those case studies. And if we are granted that, then we will all sit down together, the Planning Commission, Affordable Housing Committee, you all, the JCDC, to really kind of think about, okay, well, what area do we want to focus on? What are the big questions that we want answered?
Maybe we have a better shot because we were 7 days.
Well, to Susan's point, we've got a better shot because the first question on the application is, what work have you already done to advance housing in your community? And we've developed a housing committee. We've done a housing needs assessment. You've committed some ARPA funds to the to housing. And you've now adopted a target housing resolution. So we've established that we are passionate about it. We're working the best that we can to advance, but we need the help. The second question on the application is, what do you want? Why do you want to participate in this project? And if at 3 a.m. you pop up in bed with like, this is why a gentle infill visualization would be great for Jericho, please email it to me. The application.
You have that, yeah. Have the data with, that you're using, that, how little we are building.
Yeah.
In spite of having quarter-acre zoning and making ADUs available everywhere, or anything like that.
Yeah, and to your, so if you've got quarter-acre zoning, but you've got a house that's smack dab in the center of a
Right.
lot, and you've got road frontage requirements, and you've got, then how do you infill there?
And how can you? But
If you don't want to be a landlord, how
Yeah.
do you? So I think
I would think
there's-
that, I think it's a great idea. I'm looking forward to it, and it sounds like we're actually get some. It'll have some utility to us. I'm, the only thing that seems like might be a matter of a little delicacy is whatever that area is that they will be exploring. I think we want to be careful that it doesn't it isn't tantamount to an announcement by the town of Jericho that we're gonna be putting, you know, in your neighborhood here. I don't know
think it's a
how
really
that
good
gets presented. If stakeholders get contacted ahead of time or whatever, but I could imagine if a particular neighborhood learned that there was this consultant coming because they're thinking of putting some.
But that's why I think,
I mean, ultimately, ultimately that has to happen,
right.
but I just, in the rollout of that, I think some sensitivity.
That's why some
might
of
be-
that larger
would be nice.
properties like commercial district or Riverside are easier targets to look at.
You could imagine it more
Yeah.
easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank
but, so yeah, we don't need anything from you. We won't need anything from the town except for, a place to congregate for that meeting in the morning, should we be picked, and
That's
that
wonderful.
meeting would happen in October.
Nice, terrific.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
efforts. That's for sure.
I'm gonna go full close.
Yeah.
Thanks, that's Jay.
You could stop by my house.
That's right, I slept the laundry too. Trying to go up and downstairs is a real pain.
Trying to think, so other updates, I'll get the more perfunctory updates out of the way. Errantly made not one but two announcements about the Vermont gas work that is planned to begin at the end of the month on Packard Road. So again, homeowners have been notified. I was contacted by one who wasn't today. But since I've only heard from one person along that whole corridor, my assumption is they've done as good a job as they had communicated in reaching out to neighbors and letting them know what the scope of the work is going to be and what the impacts will be and what the benefits will be for people who want to get natural gas takeoffs for their homes. The preferred alternatives presentation for the recreational trail / multimodal trail between Silly Hill and, well, the options being between Silly Hill and Raceway out to Jericho Corners and the corridor along Route 15. We received a draft of those alternatives today. The intent will be to present them to the community and the select board at our next meeting on July 7th. So a little preview there. And trying to think what else. I guess the other thing to know, and I might have mentioned it during our last meeting, but the Chittenden County Communication Union District has had Mission Broadband has signed their contract, so they are now under contract to undertake both project management and construction oversight of broadband build out for the communities involved, again being us, Williston, South Burlington, and Colchester, and Underhill actually. And through a wild stroke of luck with the now that this contract is signed, people in similar leadership positions in other municipalities are handing off board work to other folks within the community who may have a greater grasp of fiber-based communication and build outs to take over seats on the board. I haven't reached out to Angeliki yet to see if she's interested in playing that role, has the time to play that role. She's been a functional alternate to date. But I will be engaging conversation with her. In the meantime,
because she expressed interest and she was approved prior to the resignation.
correct,
So she was appointed as an alternate.
Right.
correct.
And now that the regular rep is not there, she could.
Oh,
serve
no,
the-
so no. I am the,
Oh, you are.
I
okay,
am
I'm
the board,
confusing
I
you.
am the functioning board representative.
But he's talking about because it's getting more and more technical, people like him are leaving.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought somehow we were talking about Joel and all
and
that.
so it may be that, Angeliki is interested and decides she does have the bandwidth because of the amount of anticipated work. There's a stipend available for the board member taking over that position. So we will see, and if she's not, we'll solicit other folks in the community. But it's it's exciting. It seems like steps forward are the theme of the evening. It's really after months and months of gathering and conceiving of our organizational structure and finally getting RFPs put out and having a firm that's going to work on our behalf in place. The future's looking great. Trying to think. Oh, wanted to share two things. So update, actually, I guess 3 current projects. The wastewater feasibility study continues to move forward. We are looking forward to getting, looking forward to hearing about alternatives sometime in the near future as the summer goes on. The sidewalk grant for the Route 15 project up near Jericho Market is the design is complete. It's been submitted to the state, so we're kind of in a holding pattern until we get feedback and responses from the state about the viability of the current design.
So that's the plan that we heard quite a while ago, presented by I forget the name of the firm. They presented it and then
right.
we chose an option. And then so now that's going to the
Yes.
state.
Yep.
Okay.
Stantec is doing they're doing the design. Chittenden County Regional Planning is providing project management.
When would that actually start? Like
So-
actually shovel to the ground?
Realistically, probably not for at least another construction season. So unlikely,
So next summer.
unlikely that it would happen next construction season, most likely
The one after.
the one after.
Gotcha.
And Linda's been in in Linda fashion, she's been really good about pushing, particularly on the project management around trying to deliver as soon as possible. Good news being all of the work falls within the road right of way, so we don't have to go through extensive amount of engagement over making easement requests and that sort of thing with private homeowners.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's why it takes anyway 3 to 5 years to.
I know.
So the other thing that you'd asked me provide at our last meeting was an update on the Lee River sidewalk project, and Chris and I had a chance to revisit work that's happened to date. And as I think you're aware, when the project was originally proposed, there were six property owners of interest whose property would be impacted. 3 had expressed a willingness to provide easements, work with the town. 3 others, not so much. We have been, and Chris inherited the project from Todd when he left, and in turn, I've been working with him since. At this point, given the property owners on both sides of the road who are hesitant to commit easements even after, so I think you remember we went through a redesign project to try to move the road further away from the most primarily impacted homeowner on Lee River. Even with that slight adjustment, given the distance between where the sidewalk would be and the front door of their home, you know, basically a non-starter in terms of easement provision. What we are going to do is we have an easement valuation that's been conducted by the consulting firm. We're gonna try one more time to reach out to those two property owners specifically with a letter, the property valuation and the formal ask for an easement and see where that goes. Beyond that,
Does this include the idea of shifting it across the road earlier? And then down to Route 15 rather than have to go by that. one
so
more?
that would, you're saying about rerouting Lee River Road.
Not the
completely,
road, but
Catherine?
the sidewalk itself, just crossing it, because it was coming down one side
Right,
and they were going to cross over and then down to the other side, you know. I mean,
yeah, because of the concern about wetlands. If we were to, so
It's a
the,
small wetland. I mean, it's, you know, it should be able to be mitigated.
they are small. I think, again, I can confirm, but I think if we were gonna shift the design to be a complete reimagining of location, we would probably have to incur the redesign cost. I can confirm that with the.
Yeah, I imagine it's, you know.
With
about
Derek
$2,000
Henson from the
something,
state.
yeah.
But again, it still doesn't so I guess in some ways, what I'm trying to convey is that regardless of which side of the road we're gonna be on, we have, you know, potential easement access issues.
I guess I'm confused why we need easements. Isn't it within the town's right of way? Like the town, don't we own that because the road, whatever, 3 rod? Like, or do we have to get an easement from these property
We would
owners?
have to get an easement from the property owners.
Oh,
I think
doesn't
sometimes
all
these
fall
are
within the
construction
road.
easements more than anything. Other than sidewalk easements, because depending on the width of the road, but a lot of times you have to have construction easements.
so how is it different from the sidewalk we were just talking about? I know there's one house that's severely impacted.
Right,
So how is that different? Like that falls within Route 15's right of, like we can just do it. They don't have to like it, but we can just do it. So I guess I don't understand the difference. And that's
Yeah,
probably just my,
No, I'm wondering that too. What's the distinction? If we already own, you know, 6 feet onto somebody's lawn, including mine,
Right.
I don't care about that one.
so why do we need?
So I have to be honest, I don't know specifically. Chris had begun the process of initiating discussion around easement and access. That question was never part of my purview or thinking about it. I did assume that those questions had already been answered.
I would have thought it would have been done as part of the study because like
Yeah.
that one house would be like, yeah, no, I'm not selling you that. And the study would have been done. You know what I mean? Like there's
Well-
something must be missing.
Well, sometimes what's missing is, you know, eminent domain and.
Right.
You know, having to consider, you know, contempt.
Yeah, I mean, because.
Tough situation.
So
Yeah,
what do we
because
do
there's
with,
so-
do we just drop it? Do we like, at some point, I think as a board, we need to decide.
Right,
We go on the north side, we go on the south side, or we drop it. I think those are our 3 options, right?
Yeah,
And,
but
and
we-
none of them are great.
and
right?
then we need to know if you have to.
If we have to pay the money back, yeah.
I thought we already found that out.
Yeah.
Because I was
I-
having us consider option 3. Given the fact that there isn't a whole lot of traffic,
I don't remember,
foot traffic.
don't remember,
I don't think
No,
so.
but we have heard from people in that neighborhood
We
that,
did-
you know,
no.
for different reasons, but they were talking about how, well, it's not a walkable area. You can't walk to the Joe's because because it's too dangerous. You know, I don't let my kids walk on that. You know, I've heard that from people in that area, so, you know, they're,
But there is going to be, you know, a crosswalk, I mean, that's part of the sidewalk, is to cross over safely to Joe's. And right now, they could just go anywhere, and that's a problem.
yeah,
I think there's still 109 after. After shifting money around in the tip, I think there's as they said, construction would start until, you know, like 2024 maybe. There's $192,000 left for construction.
on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
I mean, I have walked that section along the Gallagher's property, which is the north side of Lee River. For 30 years or whatever, all the time. It's really dangerous. I certainly we never let our son go over that way. We've gotten killed. But I don't see as much foot traffic as you would think there would be. There used to be kids that would go to that swimming hole down there by
Yeah,
Plains Road. You don't see
That's
that
why the
anymore.
Trails Committee, I think, pushed, you know, and other people around the board.
Yeah,
Not necessarily John, but there were other folks who were, you know, pushing that their thing because of, as you said, you know. People walking to the swimming hole.
but is there no foot traffic because they're like you and saying, don't walk there, or would there be, or I don't know.
I think there would be a slight uptick, yeah, but it's really dangerous right there.
Because I mean, I
That's
think
why
if you're in
it's not getting
Sunnyview, you
accepted,
just
you
go
know.
through the school, right? Like, I don't think if you're in Sunnyview, you're not gonna come down and
No, you
you
go
go a
through the
different
back.
way, but. I don't
I
know.
sure wish we could resolve this whole question of if we pulled up stakes, do we have to still pay for what we already spent?
I mean, that's a big question. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, the other, because,
Because we spent grant money, and what you're saying is
yeah,
we would have to then give that money back.
Right.
We
Then
know
we're
how much,
needing that for all that design work that we did.
so we need to find out how much we spent and then the answer.
so my
to that
current,
question.
so, yeah, I knew I should have had Chris come. It's hard being the messenger. My understanding is that to date, because the expended grant funds, any of the work that happened previously for design where there was match, I don't think there's been, I think the money that we spent to do the redesign, to see what it would look like if we could shift the road, that was a $4,000 cost that we came to you all to get approved.
right.
But beyond that, I don't know.
Okay, well, we just kicked the can down the road on this, I guess.
I'll ask, yeah, again, I'll ask Chris and reach
Yeah,
back
not
out.
just Chris, but
to
ask
Derek.
CRC, because that, you know, funding comes from, you know. It came through, typically comes through the CPR with the. Or either that or it came from the state, because the state, for a while, CCRPC was funding sidewalks for Chittenden County.
Yeah.
With state money, and federal money, and now the state using state and federal money does the sidewalks in a big pool, so that's why some projects get shifted around from Chittenden County. But,
Any
so we need
cost-
to find out, yeah,
And any cost for litigation, we would have to bear
right.
just as a town.
Correct.
Exactly. I mean, it's kind of sad because in some ways it could make it safer for people,
Sure, oh yeah, it would.
but, and people have talked about.
And that's not even once you get to 15. I mean, it's so analogous to Jolly. Those
Right,
intersections have so many similarities to them,
Yeah,
right,
that it's just really problematic if you're a little kid.
right,
Though there aren't any little kids around. They're all staying in their houses. None of them are playing in yards or anything.
no.
Spooky. You go through a neighbor like Sunnyview. There's kids that live in Sunnyview. None of them are playing outside.
No,
You know, like after supper, nobody's out running around with kids and
no,
stuff.
they have,
What happened to all these kids? And I know that they're there.
it's organized sports, organized
what it is,
sport.
but
I know, that has taken over everything, yeah, and video
Anyway.
games too, but.
It's organized sports and phone.
Your question is also a good one, Eric, from my standpoint, because I don't know what would make it different.
Yeah. Just as an education thing,
Yeah.
probably.
All right, and then next I wanted to just report out so we received the report back from Jason Barnard, who had done the septic evaluation at 2 Railroad Circle. And the report that he provided pretty much aligns with what he had led Chris and I to believe would be the case in terms of capacity. So if you look at the does everyone have their copy in front of them? I've got the so on the backside of the report toward the top, I think is the pertinent information. Overall, the results of the January 1st site and test pit evaluation showed that soils associated with the back lawn area are suitable for proper treatment of and disposal of domestic wastewater via mound type system. Based on the existing topographic conditions and test pit coverage in the area most suitable in the vicinity, test pits TP1, TP3, and TP5 appear large enough to support a mound system that could be sized to properly treat and dispose of between 560 gallons per day and 700 gallons per day of domestic wastewater. In accordance with the state of Vermont, the volume of wastewater flow will equate to 4 or 5 bedrooms with a 2-person occupancy for each bedroom. So in terms of how that equates into units, that would be for us to decide.
So that's total bedrooms.
That's total
So we
bedrooms.
could do
So it's saying,
5 1-bedrooms, 1 4-bedroom and
yeah, more likely,
so probably 2 units.
Bedroom.
Probably looking at
2
2
units,
units.
1 with 3, 1 with 2.
Wow.
If that house was rehabbed
Yeah.
Yep.
into a 3-bedroom, we could do another 2-bedroom.
Say that
No,
again.
it's 5 additional, right?
5 additional, correct.
Definition.
Yeah, the house,
Doesn't have-
the septic for the house is independent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
so that would be, 5 total bedrooms for occupancy in addition to the existing 3-bedroom home.
And if you use the advanced treatment systems, as like we pay for
Right,
at our house, you could, additional wastewater capacity could be achieved.
right. So you might be able to bump up a
Couple bedrooms.
bedroom per unit.
What was said about the capacity right around the existing house, which effectively has no septic system?
That we know.
It's got cinder blocks kind of that he stacked into a cone kind of thing underneath the dirt, I think. Is there a sense that has capacity enough for that house too?
I'm sorry, I'm totally missing your
There's
question.
the house that exists already.
Yeah.
You said is apart from these calculations.
Correct.
Were there
Independent
any
septic.
test pits done next to the house to determine about its capacity?
Oh, the viability of its current septic?
Yes.
No.
I think that would be a different thing, right? That would be like a repair. That's already there. There's issues with it. It needs to be
Right.
Redone.
fixed or whatever,
Yeah.
but I don't think,
I would say. that-
I would ask Chris, but I don't think that's like, oh, we need to go apply for, maybe it would need to be reviewed, I guess,
Uh-huh.
but.
Right, so, yeah, again, I don't know what that would entail, but it's really about the soil. So the understanding is that given where the viable test pits were dug, anything between those test pits and the road, which includes the yard where the existing septic is for the house, the soils are viable. So if it needed to be replaced, it could be,
Separate system.
So 4 to 5 bedrooms. So that's one $800,000 house could be put back there by a private vendor.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. And that's probably,
With
well,
1.5 kids in it.
I
So
think,
there'd be 3
and I
people
think that's
living in
what would
this
have happened if
5-bedroom
we didn't,
house.
buy it.
That's
Yeah.
what would happen.
If we didn't buy it, okay. Because that's what they would do, given what they've done, with Morgan Road starting at 700,000 or something like that.
There you go.
I was hoping for 6.
Did you need to address us or did you say anything or just passing through? Okay, thank
And
you.
you have signed.
moral support.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
I will.
making sure.
Yeah,
She's been here,
I will.
so patient waiting back.
Very patient.
I thought you were here for that audit thing in the beginning, but.
Oh, you are, okay. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here, and because it wasn't on the agenda, I would have thought maybe in public to be heard, you would ask, but I'll do the report out. So, I think, as you know, so the paint machine, line striping machine that you approved, is gonna be delivered sometime toward the end of June.
Sweet.
And it also turns out that Fletcher, who is actually, I guess he's technically no longer the newest member of the road crew. Because we have our newest member coming on board, but Fletcher has experience using the line striping machine.
Oh, wow.
Did a lot of it apparently in his former position with the town of Essex. So what that will afford is all the safety upgrades that we discussed in terms of redefining the fog lines at the entrance to Old Pump, redoing the center lines, doing the stop sign bar, and putting in a crosswalk, which will also be a visual reminder, and it'll connect the two sidewalk areas that can also be painted and highlighted at street level. So in terms of other, I think I provided you with the letter that the parking study.
Right,
Did you
But-
see that? Okay.
but what we could do, I mean, the other thing that came out of that is we can put, instead of, the no parking, which until we have an ordinance, doesn't mean anything, we put slow.
Right.
Pedestrian crossing or something like, or just plain old slow.
Yeah.
Yes,
And Adam has, I believe, and I have to
because that came out of that.
check in with it,
Study as
but we had requisitioned ordering a sign that something to the effect of slow entering a town road that would be posted. I think the hope would be in the island where the parking lot is behind the post office. So it would clearly delineate for people coming into Old Pump, given all the other stuff that they're.
Yeah.
That indeed in and of itself is not a parking lot.
Yeah,
And is an
it does
entrance
look
to a
like
town
one. If
road.
you haven't been
It does
there,
look
it
like
looks like just a
Yeah.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
The post office has locks it, it says no parking.
no, I know, but I'm just saying visually, like if you've never been down that road before and you pull in like, cool, hey, cool, here's Palmer's. And like, it looks like a big sort of confusing parking lot. So,
Yeah.
So that report, which I thought was illuminating.
Yeah,
There were three things that could be done. The third thing was for the Palmers to do. I can't recall what it was off the top of my head, but.
Yeah.
The second thing had to do with this sign. And then the first thing was formalizing the intersection through
Right.
paint. Now, are we permitted, I don't know where the right of way ends. There's the bumpy spots where you cross the sidewalk from the post office to in front of Palmer's.
Yep.
Are we permitted to make that a crosswalk, or is that within the state right of way and we would be poking the bear if we did that?
well, so I talked to Chris about that. I mean, as a town road, I think it's within our purview to define it.
If,
can we do it and not ask?
Far enough away.
that's what I'm saying. Is
Right.
it far enough
Right.
away from Route 15 that we were off the state right of way?
That's the key.
I see what you mean.
Because if it's within that state right of way, we may have to get their okay to
Yes,
like
they-
put a strip across there.
It took.
Can we get their-
They won't be happy.
Can we get their permission after?
Crosswalks, I
You're
think.
just gonna paint it.
Right,
Well, I mean, we could do it and ask permission later.
I think that's what we do.
So you just-
Strike all that from the record.
Yeah.
Paint crosswalk across the road.
Yes,
And down the apron goes a little ways down, just paint like the yellow line and the white lines, like just
Not on the
repaint
dirt,
those.
as long
Those-
as the asphalt.
Those used to be painted, because I found, like, if you go to the Google Maps picture and you depending on which one you pick, you can see that it used to be painted. There's just no paint on them right now. And that would at least help with that hint that it's a road and not a
Right.
parking lot.
That won't help with the parking. That might help with.
But a lot of the complaints that we've heard are people think that it's a parking lot. And so they're like, you know,
In the middle of the road.
yeah, they're like just standing in the middle of the road. People are wandering around. They don't like, they're like, oh, you know, hang on a minute. Like they don't realize they're standing in the middle of the road and preventing people from getting to their houses. So you're right. Is it going to help parking in front of the houses? Probably not, but it at least helps with some of that perception issue that people are treating it just like, oh, cool.
Well,
It's a casual creamy
that's
spot.
where you put the no parking signs in front of the houses, and then we eventually get it, we have to then do a no
Yeah.
parking ordinance. Because then the ordinance has teeth, just like the ones off of Market Road that you said people ignore all the time.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so then we can, start collecting fines because you'll have an official ordinance.
Right.
Right.
So the other piece,
Are you trying to get an ordinance?
I'm not,
not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So I think the hope is to get all the pieces in place that we can put in place to make the
Easy.
road as safe as possible.
Right.
In conjunction with the effort that the Palmers are making so what they've been doing is they've been having employees park a car in a position that models how they would hope people will park when they pull in. So they have a visual understanding of how those parking spaces work on the other side of the road. And the fact that if they're gonna park on the other side of the road away from people's homes, that they park in a linear fashion and not sticking out or that sort of thing. Because and again, becomes a circular discussion. No parking signs.
Right.
Are gonna be terrible to look at. You're gonna have big 8-foot poles with no parking signs directly in front of
That
all
view.
of those houses.
That's true.
If we get to a point where it doesn't appear that the interventions we've made are working, I think that would be the point at which we consider an ordinance. But at this point,
Yeah.
I think the agreement is that we need to do all of these things first, reassess. And then see to what degree the problem's been ameliorated.
because it's not gonna go away.
It doesn't.
We're just gonna
it doesn't
listen.
fix the parking, which is what's creating the problem.
But it'll
Well,
help.
So many cars that are.
Okay,
That's all.
I
So
totally
what
agree.
you're Trying to do,
I-
and that's all you can do for this summer. because-
I totally agree. There's nothing long-term that any of that is gonna do about the volume and number of cars. Absolutely. But in terms of, and again, those are the things that we need to evaluate. I think the select board was really clear about, their primary responsibility being
Yeah.
road safety
Yeah.
when. And I can't remember if you were at the meeting when Paul and Colleen were here, but I thought that message was sent loud and clear. So there's. They obviously want to be good neighbors. They want to accommodate as much business as they possibly can. And on the town side of things, our obligation is to the safety of everyone who's in the vicinity, particularly people who are traveling on the road and the people who may be in it, crossing it and being around. So I'm wondering if the parking study, if we should ask that be formally provided. Because that hasn't been submitted formally to the select board in a public forum.
What?
The-
The one that they
The
that they
parking
sent us.
study
I thought,
that Paul and
well, I
Colleen
thought you
did,
did it as, it was part of updates.
I did.
And so that's, it was
But
part of
the-
the select board,
Not on the agenda.
So, well, I
but
mean,
there's nothing, it was just a report. And so there's nothing that we were going to do out of it that we already talked about. So it could be just put in the file, for the people.
Sure.
For the public to see.
and we have that, and I guess what I'm thinking is, obviously, there's a lot of concerned neighbors who would love to see
Right,
that study.
Hmm.
I don't. so I guess because process clarification, because the document itself hasn't been presented.
Nor is it our study.
Right, nor is it
But
our
it
study.
became a part of our packet. And
Okay,
it is becomes a
so
public
it's, so
document.
it's part of the public record.
Oh, yeah,
So
so
we-
it's part of the public record, absolutely.
Yeah,
So if neighbors wanted to access it,
they could.
they could do that.
Oh.
But I'm a little funny about us distributing it because
No.
it's not our study. We didn't approve the study.
But it's,
I think it allays.
So how would, so just,
once it was in our packet.
so how does somebody go get this one, this
They-
municipal lease consultant? So like, let's say somebody cared about this lease thing. So would they,
Go up to Paula or Chris.
so they just go in and say, hey, I heard you guys talking about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean. they would
I mean,
probably-
I honestly, I don't think Paul and Colleen would have any issue if they were asked providing it to you. I don't know that we need to be the,
But if people want to come in and see the file, I mean, they could. I mean, that's they're.
I think that's the distinction. If neighbors wanted to come in to get that, they can. But I don't think the select board should be disseminating a study that was commissioned by a private landowner. That just seems funny to me. for us to be
Absolutely,
doing
because we didn't, right, we didn't go get bids on it and
Right.
pick a fair and neutral. I'm sure they did pick a fair and
Yeah.
neutral one, but we didn't. So, all right.
So I can walk in and ask them.
Right.
Yeah.
I asked for the parking study I've done.
or you could email me and I'll send it to you.
No, you should not send it to him.
No,
If they come in and ask for it, it's not a town document. And we have neighbors who are gonna take exception to that study.
Okay.
No matter what's done, it's not gonna be enough.
Yeah.
Because they're, it's a visceral kind of safety thing. And I don't think we want to present, hey, we did the study, well, here's the
No, we
study, it
didn't.
looks pretty good. No, we didn't do the study.
But once,
The private landowner did the study.
but anything in our packet is public document.
Now, having said all that, the study said, it looks pretty good. It's a little messy. I'm oversimplifying.
Right.
But here are 3 things you can do, and that's about what we can live with. And that's sort of the short and long of the study.
And that's
Neighbors
what
are
we-
not gonna necessarily think
and it-
that's great, but that's,
And it, emphasize what we were already planning on doing.
so anyway, I didn't mean to jump all over you. I
No,
just
no,
want to
no.
make that decision. It's a process thing.
sure.
I think it's important for those who are concerned to know that something's being done, because the general perception is nothing being done.
Well,
And maybe that's not a fair statement.
I don't think that is a
No.
fair statement.
For people like myself and others to know is to get the information.
Well, when people were sitting at this meeting,
Until
yeah,
10 minutes.
because we just received it. It wasn't,
Okay, but, I mean, I've been trying to get information from Chris Flynn, to John, I exchanged emails, just trying to get information.
But we had,
And it's been challenging and.
well, I would ask for this,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward, pretty quick read.
but we're doing what we said we would do. We just, approved paying for this paint machine and trailer. I mean, so that we could paint. And then.
And we'll actually be able to do something quicker than we would have contracted out because they were so booked that we didn't have anyone till July. So.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I think that concludes my updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Patty and I knew why she was here, so I wanted to stay.
Let's go see you.
I didn't want to leave her here all by herself.
Bye, Connie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
It was a very interesting webinar I went to today, on the municipal vulnerability index, and it's, they have been tasked as part of the Global Warming Solutions Act to create a tool kit for municipalities to know how they're vulnerable for climate change.
Oh,
And so they're in the process of creating it. There's also there's also going to be another toolkit for municipalities on climate. But it was fascinating because what it was is they've had meetings with stakeholders like the regional planning commissions and on engineers and things like that. And this was for municipalities. And I was in a breakout group that had a lot of smaller towns like Bristol and Ripon and things like that. But what they were talking about, how you could use it, it's really a global tool, again, one-stop shop kind of thing for all kinds of stuff, just fascinating. But by the end of the year, they're gonna have the final report on how to use it.
Well, what would be like some of the uses for it?
Key factors are how about you lose food and water? What do you do about that? What about biodiversity, severe weather, bridge and road issues? And so all this is going to be part of your vulnerability index. You know where you can do things to mitigate or adapt or something like that.
Does that play into anything like, like if it was for a house, right? It would be like affect your insurance rate. Does it play into anything like that as far as the municipality? So we'd be encouraged like, hey, you only got a 45, but you go fix these 2 bridges, then you go up to a 60 or
They said it's not
whatever.
going to be required for communities, but clearly it helps you be more resilient and adaptive. And they're using all kinds of public data, like the hazard mitigation plans that people have looked at. Other people suggested all kinds of other things. We're using the social community index, because that also talks about lower income, the communities of color or refugees or, language issues or disability issues or things like, so there's all these social, because there's a social vulnerability one. It looks at economics and jobs, your built and physical structure, your natural environment, and where you are most likely to be. And you could use it for capital planning, for grant applications, for your planning documents. And so our discussion was then how could we use it and how's it, because there was one guy, he said, I've been a elderly gentleman, I think it was from Ripon. He said, he was in our breakout group. He said, I've been a select board for only a year and a half. He said, I'm still trying to figure out where my feet are. And he said, it's got to be really, really easy to use. He said, we've had a select board that doesn't even do email.
Wow, really?
So, and he said, we have one paid employee. And so, where do we go for help? And that's where the regional planning commissions had their meeting first, because they're saying, we need more staff because people are going to be leaning on us to help on how to use this stuff.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with it? Especially if, and then somebody asked, he said, well, are we going to, there was one about how you rank. And they said, get rid of the ranking, because what that means is if anybody has any staff or not staff, then that means they're not going to get any help at all. And he said, everybody's going to need help when it comes to climate change.
Yeah.
Because he said, say you rank number 1, or, in terms of, oh, you've done all this good stuff already. It means nobody will ever help. If the state ever used it for grants, then you're toast.
Yeah.
But so this was a fellow from, who clearly whose community could use it a lot. And he said, no, he said, everybody's going to need help. And so money should go, to whatever project at the moment makes the most sense that they have the money for. And I agree with him. But there was, and they said, the stuff doesn't stop at the town line. So you have to look at what your neighboring towns are doing, where they're vulnerable and how you interconnect, whether it's, transportation or is a bridge or is it a culvert, something from your end is going to impact them or vice versa. And one person asked a really good question. She said, well, she was a geoclimatologist. I've been one for 40 years. But the idea was, she said, okay, we also, she also is involved in the town and was talking about, having to do hydrologically connected roads and doing our municipal road permit and all the different things. And she said, okay, so we do all this good stuff. And she said, for those people, because we know there is toxicity when it comes to talking about climate change. And how do you, and there are people that aren't listening, they just think you're going blah, 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 blah. So she said, I'll try to create a algorithm or a way of looking at return on investment for our investments in this adaptation or our mitigation plans, because money talks, no matter who you are. And you can say, well, you know, if we do this culvert and redo, you know, Silly Hill, we can save X number of dollars a year, you know, because it's not going, you know, and it's also going to prevent this many algae blooms in, you know, the rivers or something, whatever.
Yeah.
And that really makes a lot of sense.
That does, and
Yeah,
you're right, those
that's a good point.
assumptions, we still operate under those assumptions now, putting in a new culvert, because if we don't, then the highway department's got to put in 20 hours fixing it,
Yeah.
but we never say any of those things,
Right,
but you're right,
but you know, that's a cost to the town to fix it after it's flooded out.
right?
And you put in the one that fits for the 50-year flood or 100-year flood, then you know, you're good. And so, yes, it costs X dollars now, but we save Y dollars now in the future. So, I mean, money does stuff. So it was fascinating. I was also pleased to learn about another energy planning tool, so in case our energy committee ever gets a little more active than what we're doing. But what we have now is we have the official EV event. It's June 29th from 4 to 6 on Browns River Middle School lawn area, Green Mountain Power, and is gonna, you know, bring it, you know, they send out a blast to people that they know have EVs. They come and they talk about their cars. People from Green Mountain Power have some really cool toys. And then the other thing that's going to happen at the same time from 5:30 to 6:30, people who want to have more information, we've reserved the fireplace room with the Deborah Rawson. And so representatives from Drive Electric and Green Mountain Power will be there to talking about what's the current incentives, you know, charging stations, you know, different things like that. And then other owners of cars will be there to answer questions or talk about who wish to talk about the pros and cons of their EV, you know, and or ask questions. In particular, you know, how do you drive cross country? You know, if you don't have a Tesla. You know.
I heard an interesting piece on the radio a few days ago. I think Ford and Chevrolet, two of the big car companies,
Oh, yeah,
have veered from their own battery technology and charging technology and have entered into an agreement with Tesla to use theirs
Oh,
because
wow.
they see benefit both in travel distance, like immediately, and having some kind of universality of charging cords. Again, I don't.
Like cell phone plugs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Right.
cell phone plugs.
exactly.
Well, that's the problem going cross country. There are multiple companies who provide charging stations for different car, you know, for.
Right.
What if you don't have the right one?
If you don't have the
I
right-
made it.
Or the way they charge the fee is different. I mean, so you really could get screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the other thing, is there needs to be universality in terms of charging stations, just like, you know. You may have, you know, Marathon gas, but the pump is exactly the same as if it was Excellent.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So that's what I got.
I don't have anything to report, went up to my eyeballs and family stuff, so I'm here.
I'm good.
You are here, Wayne.
I don't have anything either.
Okay, I have to, let's say, let's go
Minutes?
minutes, we'll do minutes.
I did not get a chance to look at them this time.
Well, I didn't see much. I just saw one very tiny little edit, and that was, you know, of course, the eyeballs get tired after looking at, you know, reading that entire packet.
That was a 97-page, yeah, that was a big packet.
That was a big thing. Anyway, it says on line 468, Johnson moved from Catherine McBain's second. It could be seconded. To come.
Did you say 68, Catherine?
Yeah, 468.
468. Thank
Yes.
you.
And if you'll excuse me, I have to take.
Okay, so that's it? You're looking for a motion to approve those
Yes.
minutes?
And I will get.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of June 1st, 2023.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. And then I didn't put the adjourn in. I'm sorry. I just happened to remember, I just saw
Okay.
the adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
That's important.
Eric moved to come out of executive session, Wayne seconded. And that was on Wednesday, last Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 7th.
Wednesday, the 7th, that was 7:10 PM. The motion passed 3-0. There was no action taken, and then Wayne motioned, Eric seconded to
Adjourn.
adjourn at 7:11. And now stretch my legs and stuff.
And
See if
will
I
you
can even
be,
walk. Excuse me.
you're doing good.
I'm doing good. Oh, I feel so bubbly. Well, please.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for reasons of personnel and legal because premature disclosure of the information would be detrimental to the parties involved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye,
Good night, everybody.
good night.